turn off your video until the chair calls upon you.
Recording in progress.
Okay, the recording is started. I'd like to call this meeting of the Finance Committee, Wednesday, November the 12th, 2025, to order. I'll start by acknowledging that we are gathered today on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Tla'amin Nation, as well as all Coast Salish First Nations on whose traditional territories we have the honor to live, including my home on qathet, also known as Lasqueti Island. We have an agenda before us. I understand that one of the delegations is not coming. That's item 4.8. So if there are any other changes anyone would like to propose, otherwise I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda minus 4.8. Director McCormick, Director Lennox, is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? None opposed? Carried. Okay, we have minutes from October the 7th. Are there any changes or omissions anyone would like to note? And seeing no hands, I would like to call someone like to move adoption. Director Gisborne, Director Lennox, discussion. Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? None opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, we have delegations. We have a number of delegations before us. The first one is Rebecca Burbank, the Chief Librarian of the Powell River Public Library. Ms. Burbank, the floor is yours. You have up to 10 minutes, and then we can follow with some questions around the table if needed.
I'm going to do my best to not cough during this, but I have a little cough that's lingering. So thank you all so much for your time today. My name is Rebecca Burbank. I'm the Chief Librarian at the Public Library here in Powell River. And I did want to also acknowledge I've got the chair of our board with me as well, Patrick Rabazon, who's been our chair for 2 years. Before I jump into the...
Hold on, we have a little feedback. Makes it more interesting.
It was muted, now it's not, and now it's off, sure.
Testing.
Sounds good. Okay, carry on, Ms. Burbank.
Thank you. So I'm here today to present the Library Board's 2026 budget to the Regional District Board. And before I jump into that, I did want to share some highlights from our work at the library. I know that is usually interesting for you all. One of the things I just wanted to talk about is affordability, and that's a key issue that public libraries are able to help alleviate by taking some pressure off the patrons of the library and members of our community. We provide services with no cost to the end user, which lowers the barriers to activities and events, using resources, all of those things people are able to use more freely. And this helps to create a space that is inclusive and builds connection and social cohesion. So some of the examples I wanted to share with you today are things like after-school activities. These and the Summer Reading Club are opportunities for families to send their kids to programming without having to weigh that financial piece against other parts of their household budgets. They can just say yes, send the kids to the after-school program, and not have to consider an added cost for their personal budgets. Patrons also have access to things like technical support for their devices and recreational activities like writing groups and workshops. We also support community well-being. We help people to achieve their goals. And when we think about that, it's a very broad consideration. A goal could be, I need to stay out of the rain. It's January. I don't have anywhere else to go. Or it could be, I'd like to learn how to write my memoirs. So we are there to support people with their goals. And that engagement and social connection, I see it as promoting well-being of both the community and our patrons. The library also identifies partnerships and resource sharing possibilities. Library staff work to improve access to library services by connecting people and groups to those services. So we're fortunate to be able to connect with students through schools. One of the pictures you'll see in your presentation is the writer-in-residence this year going to a classroom. We sent the writer-in-residence out to meet with classrooms across the district and introduce them to writing and also to library services. We also connect with community groups, and this can help us to identify unique solutions to issues throughout the community. The second image you see there is an assistive device for someone who's got like limited grip strength and helps them to hold a pen. And this was printed on the 3D printer at the library. And so introducing this to community groups who service or provide services to people with disabilities in our community just helps to really highlight those services we already provide in an approachable, meaningful way. The library, of course, also provides a digital collection, and we are seeing increasing and continued demand on this service. So our year-to-date use of the digital collection, and this was just to the end of September, was almost 42,000 circulations, which is a 15% rise over last year. Our 3-year rise, so from 2022 is what you see on the chart there, that's almost 50% increase. So we're grateful to be able to provide service remotely to patrons, but there is a cost, and the cost of these circulations is more than what we pay for physical resources. So I do like to show you sort of the breakdown of where the library cards are this year. The regional district has 25% of the cards per capita. I do want to note this can be influenced by the way different families have library cards for their households. So one household might have one per person in the house, and a separate family might have one library card that they all use. So it's not necessarily an exact representation of usage, but we find it to be a pretty good metric. And then, of course, broken out by the areas. This is in your package as well. And in front of you, you also have the 2026 proposed revenue budget. The library revenue includes provincial, federal, operating revenue, and recently a transfer from reserve. That transfer from reserve is largely a provincial grant that was awarded in 2023. It's a one-time, I think the term they were using is a generational grant, so we don't expect to see more of that. But it is something the library is using has been using over a few years. And it's represented in transfer from reserve. I did want to take a moment here to just acknowledge the work of our local governments at UBCM in advocating for the provincial funding. It's ongoing and very appreciated, and I think it is the understanding of a lot of library directors in the province that it was that advocacy that triggered the one-time funding that we saw in 2023. So while we haven't seen an ongoing and increased grant from the province, we are grateful for that one-time funding. This is the share of the total revenue budget. The qathet Regional District makes up 27% of this. The City of Powell River is 60%, and provincial funding is 5%. And of course, that percentage will just continue to decrease over the years unless that funding increases from the province. And over to our operating budget for 2026. You'll see that we're facing increased costs. There are 2 areas that are most notable: labor and facilities. The increase in the labor budget is driven by contractual increases and a rise to benefits cost. We're also seeing that the labor budget includes funding. Well, there is a position in that area as well. It is supported by funding from that provincial grant. Into facilities, we have seen a $7,700 increase to the lease rate going into 2026. That area is also increased by a recommended addition of a $10,000 contribution to create a reserve fund dedicated to deductible costs. You might know we had a large flood earlier this year. Cost and impact was borne by the library during the remedy of that. And so our that was borne entirely by the library. And so it was recommended by the city that we include this $10,000 reserve fund in this year's budget so that the library can have at least the deductible covered should there be a future incident. We also saw increases in fees and memberships. This is rising from increases to the audit fee. We included here also an updated room booking calendar that's for public use. And we're also seeing increasing Microsoft costs. Looking at the share of our total expense budget, of course, labor makes up the majority of our budget at 62%. And facilities is that orange section just after at 22%. The last slide here shows the grant requests from both of our local governments. The capital budget listed here is forecasted. It's a forecasted average over the next 5 years. And our capital budget largely includes things like technology for staff, so laptops, photocopier, and the plan is based on our technology replacement schedule. These numbers are also provided in your package and the memo that corresponds with it. I appreciate your time today, and through the chair, I'd be happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you, Ms. Burbank. Perfectly on time. Are there questions around the table? I don't see the board very well, so you'll have to call out. I see Director Elliott. I'll start with Director Elliott.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. I was very interested in the 3D printed assistant device in the picture. And my thoughts on that were, is it working well for the people who need that?
We tested it and it needed a little bit of modification. So I think staff ended up putting double-sided tape in there to help hold the pen in place.
It would slide.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yes, at the end it did work well.
Oh.
I think it depends on the specific capability of someone's hand. It's working fairly well.
Excellent. It was a very curious picture, and so
I'm sure
sharing that. My question, I guess, is given that budgets are a hard thing for all of the government right now, and the province hasn't committed to any additional funding, if the regional district and or the city are unable to provide the entire request, what happens to your operations in response to a lower amount of money? Yeah, that's a great question. That would be a consideration for the library board in the event of reduced funding. We do clearly rely on our local funders. And so our ability to provide services is entirely dependent on the grants requested locally. We have, as you've seen, little support from the province for operations. So a reduced local grant contribution would reduce services. Right, and so the process would be that you would learn what the grants are, go back to the board would figure out what to do about it, and then you would roll out the information to the rest of us. The regional district board and city council would need to agree. Gotcha. Great, thank you.
Are there other questions around the table? Director Southcott.
And then Chair. And thank you very much. Libraries are close to my heart, this library particularly. When I was young, in order to acquire books that related to my specific interests, they came from Victoria by what was called the open shelf. That was a provincial responsibility, which obviously we don't have anymore, because it's now our local library that looks after exchanges from other libraries should there be need for materials. Anyway, it's just one small example to me of how library services have expanded to the community benefit over the years. Another I'm aware of is memoirs you mentioned. I'm also aware of an elder in our community who published a book within the last year or so. And that was after 10 years of programs at the library where she wrote. And finally, what she wrote, although she'd never intended this to at the beginning, became a book that preserves heritage and tells stories of growing up during the 30s and 40s and what school was like. It's a fascinating book and it's very personal. So, you know, it relates to many of our families and generally the history of this community told in a way that's so digestible. Can you think of any other examples like that are really enrich the culture, our culture here, like that one, that for me, that have come out of programs particularly? Like I love the writer in residence, so, and I'm
Ms. Burbank?
Through the chair, from the memoir writing workshops.
Yeah, or anything else. I'm just thinking of, you know, the spin-off benefits that I've seen have just expanded and expanded over years, and it creates culture that's affordable. That's something that I've been aware of. It's hard to quantify that. And I'm wondering if there has been any attempt to really quantify. Maybe that's a secondary question, but maybe more pertinent to actually what I'm getting at.
There are two services that come to mind. First is the Memoir Writers Program, which you've mentioned. And through that, people are able to learn about the process, be supported in their process of writing down their story, and then also editing their work and publishing it to the degree that they would like to. And that I've found is very appreciated by family and friends. It does document people's lives and the culture of the community they grew up in often. And the second program that came to mind is a service. We provide story boxes to local early childhood educators. And so that would be maybe a scenario where a daycare could come in and borrow a story box and have like a story time ready to go, and that enables them to deliver a better story time, better early childhood literacy. And those boxes are all tailored to local culture. So as often as we can, it includes something from Coast Salish author, illustrator. There are props in there as well, songs, poems, puppets. I'm sure I could come up with both.
Thank you. Before I hand it to Director Lennox, the red timer compels me to say, keep our questions brief, and not just you, any further questions. So that's no criticism meant, but just the red timer is there. So go ahead, Director Lennox.
Well, thanks, Chair. Thanks for your presentation. A bunch of interesting comments. I actually appreciate what you said about people's goals and the different levels, right? Just getting out of the rain or trying to get a degree. Very interesting. Excuse me. And that interesting statistic on the amount of digital demand that you have in the increase. Also been tracking Area A and the 54% was always interesting to see, and that hasn't slowed down, I think, over the last couple of years when you've given us those stats. So pretty cool to see that. And there is some correspondence on our board meeting relevant to one of our resolutions in 2024 and the disappointing reaction that we've got from the provincial government, municipal affairs. And so I think there's something, I guess it's not a question for you, but a comment on us maybe taking some more action with our MLA and those ministries. So, because I just pulled it up while you were talking and it disappointed me again when I read it. So I guess my only question is, have you had any restrictions on the type of media, digital media or written or otherwise obtaining it? Is that part of sort of the capital costs? I think I heard you say some of it's more expensive.
Through the chair, our capital costs are going to be technology, things like that for the library space, and then the increased digital use. And I did mention rising costs there as well. That's within our collection budget. Those are rising, and often we have access to a single point of access. So we provide access to, for example, press reader. They have discretion over what is provided within that subscription. And we are simply signing the community up for access. So there have been some concerns around availability of ebooks, cost of ebooks, things like that through some of our vendors. And I think that will continue.
Thank you.
Okay, Director Gisborne.
Thank you. I got two questions. The first one is, because of course we're not part of Vancouver Island Regional Library, so I'm just wondering, how does our library costs compare with other libraries, for example, Gibson's and Seashell? And I know the populations are different. I'm curious, like how does our cost compare per capita, or do we have those numbers?
Those numbers are available. What I would caution is that what's baked into those numbers, it varies really dramatically. So some libraries, some municipal libraries, which our library is, pay no facilities costs, for example, or might not pay for payroll service, right? They don't have to have staff for that because it's just absorbed by their municipality. It's an invisible cost. It still costs the municipality something, but it's not seen in those numbers, and it's not shown on the books for the library in those communities. So it's challenging to compare those as apples to apples because they're all treated so differently.
It's kind of like apples to grapefruit. And then my follow-up question, I heard there was a lease rate increase, and I noticed in the presentation facilities budget goes up by, I think, 24,000. I missed the number that you said the lease rate changed by.
7,700 through the chair.
Okay, 7,700. And that's to the municipality, I presume.
Yes.
Yeah, because they own the building and they have the referendum for it. Thank you, Chair. No further questions at this time.
Okay, thanks. We are out of time for questions, but I'd like to, and I don't see any other burning hands from those who haven't asked. So thank you for coming before us. And just briefly, as you know, I'm the trustee on the Vancouver Island Regional Library for Lasqueti Island. And I think this request to the province, just because the province says no regularly, doesn't mean we don't keep asking. So we'll keep trying and working together. So thank you very much. And
Thank you.
We'll carry on with the meeting. Thank you, Ms. Burbank.
Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, our next item 4.2, is Carol Herder from Lang Bay Community Club. And Ms. Herder, the floor is yours. You have up to 10 minutes to present to us.
Good afternoon. I'm Carol Herder. I am on the board and of the Lang Bay Community Club. And the Lang Bay Community Club is a nonprofit society, and it has been supporting Lang Bay Hall for 79 years. So I am here to enlighten you on what we do. Okay, just a little bit of background on our request for a grant and aid. Earlier this year, the Lang Bay Community Club board met and discussed the need to update our heating system. We have a aging oil furnace, and we thought that perhaps a heat pump would probably solve our future heating issues, as well as add a little bit of cooling to the building. We currently have a certified kitchen, and during the hot days of summer, it can get pretty hot in there. We recently did all the blackberry pie filling for the Blackberry Festival here in town, and that was all done in the Lang Bay kitchen, and it was kind of hot. We also prepared food for the Palm Beach Music Festival. So, you know, our kitchen is used all year round. So the summers would be definitely much better with a little bit of a cooling system. We did check out available rebates, and we are non-residents. We are not a business. We're a non-profit organization looking after a 105-year-old building. So rebates were not really readily available. So we applied to the Powell River Community Forest, for funding, and they fully supported our request for a heat pump. However, when this request went to the city council rejected the community forest recommendation and decided to give us just a little over half of our requested amount. So here we are. We're asking the qathet regional directors to consider funding the original shortfall. The shortfall is $6,500. And the Lang Bay Community Club, of course, then would make up any difference in any added costs. I probably don't have to tell the directors here the value and the benefits of having groups of volunteers and organizations who, organize things in your communities. We're very fortunate in Area C to have Lang Bay Hall. And this is a place that is a gathering place. It's a place where, it's a polling station. It's weekly activities. In fact, speaking of weekly activities, here's our Area C newsletter, which has half a page of what happens every week at Lang Bay Hall. And not only do we have weekly activities, we have special events. Last month, we had an Oktoberfest organized by the volunteers of the Lang Bay Community Club, and it was well attended. Last weekend, we had a Christmas craft and collectibles sale. Again, 17 vendors were in there, and it was pretty amazing. Tomorrow, we have Four Tides Hospice Society coming to Lang Bay Hall, and they are presenting a advanced care planning workshop, and it's fully booked. This weekend, we have a celebration of life. So, I could go on and on. We have varied events happening at the hall, and I think with the hall users that walk through the door, it would be nice to be comfortable with a reliable heating system, and again, in the summer, it would be nice to be cool. In December, coming up, we have our kitchen is in use. A lot of the vendors who participate in the markets here in town do their mass producing in Lang Bay Hall. So, cookies and candies and all that stuff is being prepared in our kitchen. The week after, we have our annual seniors Christmas luncheon. Again, the volunteers are preparing a lunch for our area seniors. In fact, our Area C director is one of our more experienced servers. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that the hall is used almost daily, and it would be really nice to have a reliable and sustainable heating system. So I guess just to sum everything up, I hope that you will see the value in maintaining the community hall. It's one of few that are left, and I think they are very important to rural communities. It's a place to gather and a place to celebrate. So again, I thank you for your time. If you have any comments or questions,
Thank you, Ms. Herder, for the presentation. Comments around the room, questions? So Director Brander and then Director Gisborne.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for coming in. If you're successful with getting the heat pumps in there, which it sounds like you are because you already have quite a bit of funding from the community forest, do you think there's a potential for Lang Bay Hall to be a cooling center during some of the hot times in the summer months?
It's possible that we could bring that to the board. Lang Bay Hall is also an information center. We have a generator as well. And in the case of a natural disaster, it's a place where our area can come and either get warm or cool off or get some information on where to go next. So it's a possibility.
Okay, thank you.
Director Gisborne.
My question is, I took a look at the information you got, and I see the quote is from December 2024, which doesn't seem that long ago, but I was on the farm getting a walk-in freezer installed, and the compressor and evaporators, the prices have been changing with all the tariffs and everything. How nailed down is that quote? And are they going to Paint it on you, Mike.
Okay, good question. Well, when we picked that quote, they said that they would stick with it. Okay, but if there is added costs, then the community club would be prepared to handle that.
Okay, that's good to hear that they'll stick with it.
That's what we hear. And it's a local company. They live just up the road from the hall. So I'm hoping that they're good for it.
Wonderful. That's my question, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Is there any other, seeing no other hands up? Thank you, Ms. Herder. We'll be considering this request later in the meeting.
Okay, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming before us. Okay, moving on, we have item 4.3, Shaun Garvey and Joe Mastrodonato, Powell River Kings Hockey Club Society. Welcome to the board. You have up to 10 minutes to present to us, and then we may ask some questions. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, directors, staff of the Regional District. I'm here on behalf of the Powell River Kings Hockey Club Society. My name is Shaun Garvey. I'm currently the president of the society. I am also this year in charge of business operations and development for the Kings organization and doing game day operations as well. I just wanted to give you a little bit of context relative to the club for those of you that are only slightly familiar with the history of the Powell River Kings. We've been around since 1988, where we came here from Delta. We were brought here by a small group of investors. And at that time, originally, we were the Powell River Paper Kings. In 1998, we became the Powell River Kings, changed our colors, which you see typically not just on our jerseys, but on most of the jerseys, and had emulated the Regals colors from way back when as well. And we've been in the community now since 1988, and going forward, we're very hopeful that we're going to continue to be here for some time to come. The society is a nonprofit entity as well. We are made up of 10 directors on our board of directors. Unfortunately, Joe Mastrodonato can't be here today. He apologizes for an inability to be here. He's over on Vancouver Island with his wife getting a knee replacement done. So I recognized that he would love to have been here because he could speak very clearly to a lot of the financial issues surrounding the team. I'll speak in his stead. Our annual budget is somewhere in the area of about $1.2 million in expenses, and in line with that, it's always a challenge for us to generate the necessary revenues associated with our hockey operations to be able to cover just those expenses alone. We do get a grant from the city to help us reduce our costs associated with the leasing of the facility at the complex. It's probably to the tune of about $50,000 worth of cost reduction associated with that lease, which is really critical for us to be able to provide ongoing ice time for all of our players to practice. And we've been a long-standing member of the community and region since 1988. In the summer this year, we performed an economic and social impact assessment using metrics and methodologies that have been used by major hockey leagues around Canada and in North America. And some of the highlights of that study are as follows. $1.2 million in direct local spending generated annually by the team, players, visitors, and events. 3 weeks ago, we had all the players' parents here, and they spent a lot of money in town, not just in accommodations, but in restaurants and souvenirs and the like, and tours, as they try to get a lot better information as to what their sons are doing on a day-by-day basis here in town. Spent a lot of time with the billet parents as well. We also have about $2.4 to $3.2 million in total annual economic activity when accounting for indirect and induced ripple effects impacts. This accounts to about 350 to 400 hotel rooms per season, booked by the visiting teams and families. Roughly about $69,000 spent on meals, more than $30,000 annually on ferry travel, $10,000 of which is provided to us as a sponsorship from BC Ferries. We are the only club in the BCHL which actually enjoys having a sponsorship. And obviously the reason that is we're the only team in the BCHL which is required to take a ferry wherever we go, regardless of what teams we're having to play outside of town. We engage, originally the number was from about 30 to 50 volunteers. Right now, we have over 75 people volunteering for us on any given game night, whether it be selling 50-50 tickets, helping out the concessions, being security people, being scorekeepers, working up in our broadcast booth, helping out sell tickets, doing merchandising, working on game day operations, being rink rats, helping out on the ice with some of our things going on during intermission games. We have a lot of youth mentorship, hockey camps, and seniors and school visits. We are very supportive of our players getting out into the community and the region to ensure that they're getting the full power of experience and qathet experience relative to their ability to emulate some of their mentors here in town and become more, I guess, giving within the community. We had some real great feedback as to some of the activities that they've undertaken in recent years at a recent Rotary event that I spoke at. It was very heartwarming to hear how our players are really meshing with the community, and especially in the seniors and the youth. We've had our READ program going on now for almost 20 years. We're in the schools on a weekly basis doing reading for our students. And the key factors we find relative to our financial situation is that 4 years ago, the BCHL implemented a standards scorecard, which has a variety of metrics within it, which are either required mandatory metrics to be met or are non-mandatory, but still highly suggested. Some of them being staffing, some of them being hockey operations, staffing that actually has specific prescribed salaries, which have to be met in order to get points on the scorecard. Infrastructure, business operations, a lot of financial goals have to be met. Season ticket sales have to meet a specific target in order for us to get points on that scorecard. Essentially, the scorecard is a blueprint for a successful BCHL franchise. Every team strives to get as many points as they can on the scorecard. Until recently, the Power Kings were the only team in the BCHL to be on probation within that scorecard because we weren't meeting our standards. Happy to say that we're no longer in that position. We did a lot of work in the last 6 months to ensure that we met the standards and increased them to the point where they increased the standards as of January's meeting for the Board of Governors for the BCHL at their annual All-Star Game event, that we will have plenty of wiggle room going forward. But the majority of those standards require additional generation of revenues to cover some of those costs in association with those standards. So for us, it's always a challenge. Now we have a partner since 2023 that's been contributing to our financial shortfalls in hope that they are actually going to purchase the team. For those of you who don't know, the team is up for sale, has been now for well over 3 years. We're hoping that within the next 12 to 24 months that we will see a buyer in order to ensure the sustainability of junior hockey here in Powell. So anything that the regional district is able to do to support our hockey operations and our business operations from a financial perspective, it will go a long ways to ensuring that sustainability. So thank you, and take any questions at this point.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Are there questions around the table? Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Garvey. So I have a couple of questions. The first question, in the one that says your budget for proposed budget for 2026, 2027, there's 2 columns. One's generally increased over the other. The outside column says budget 25, 26. And so I'm assuming that meant should have been over the first column and the second column proposed for 26, 27. I just trying to get some clarification around that. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so they're kind of reversed.
Yeah.
Because one is bigger than the other, and I didn't think you were going down in budget.
We're definitely not going down, no.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question has to do with clarifying the value of the in-kind facilities grant that you get from the city. The report says it's between 60 and 65,000 in value, and you verbally said it was 50,000 in value.
Yeah, I would agree that it's probably closer to 60 to 65, but I was not including some of the room rentals that we did last year that we're not doing this year. So that will reduce that cost that we would have seen this year.
Okay. So the way the city calculates those is they try to put a market value on it, and then so the amount kind of expands along with the market value of it, so that will adjust as well. But
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Brander, and then Director Gisborne.
Thanks, Chair. So to understand, the first column is this upcoming, or the season we're in right now, the proposed budget. And okay. I mean, a lot of the numbers seem to be relatively close, but then I see the salaries jumped by a full 40%. Was there another staff member or staff members added, or?
For next year?
I guess it goes from roughly 270,000 to 380,000.
Yeah. That would be associated with the fact that this year there are two individuals, myself and Joe Bastardonato, that essentially for nothing. Mm. And that's not a sustainable situation. We recognize that the way that the BCHL is structured, that you need full-time specialized staff, not people that are ultimately retired. Joe's in his early 80s. Mm-hmm. We have been trying to get him to peel back a little bit. He just recently was recovering from a month-long bout with pneumonia, which could have been very bad. So again, we're trying to ensure that we've got the right people in the right positions to, especially on the marketing and sales side, which is important for us. This year, we actually had our highest ever sponsorship revenue, just over $200,000. So with someone actually dedicated to that role on an ongoing basis, 24/7, 365, we'd be able in a much better position potentially financially, as well as that will increase that salary situation.
Okay, thank you.
Director Gisborne, and then Director Southcott, and then we'll be short on time, so please be brief. But go ahead, Director Gisborne.
I'll do my best, Chair. I might know the answer to this one, but I just want to clarify. So when we're talking about the financial support from the city, that's not a direct awarded grant. That's like a waiver of the fees that the complex would charge you typically. Is that understanding correct?
That's probably a good way of putting it, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it's a loss of revenue that the city would get for what they would typically charge for rent.
What we're getting charged right now is more in line with what minor hockey gets charged. It's a youth rate versus an adult rate.
Okay.
Given that our players are anywhere from 16 to 20. So
that's how the city is supporting, is by reducing the amount of fees that they would collect from you.
Yes.
Okay. And then the other one I'm a little confused about, the teams for sale, but you're a nonprofit. How does that work?
How that works is that every team, regardless of how they're structured, has a franchise value. This particular organization, typically the BCHL requires most teams to meet a threshold relative to that franchise value. And right now they're put an arbitrary number as 1.4 million. In order for the Powell River Kings to continue to exist, we need to have a private entity purchase the team. When they do, they'll have to go through the BCHL in order to get approval for that sale. That was a process that was undertaken in 2023 and failed. And as a result of that, we've had an arrangement with the organization, which was originally trying to purchase the team at that point. What would happen if they had been successful is they would have purchased the team. The society would have either folded entirely and ceased to be, or we would have continued and possibly just supported minor hockey here in Powell River under a totally different structure. But they would then purchase the operations of the team, and then they would essentially they'd operate the team in its full capacity, whether it be business, hockey operations, you name it.
Okay.
That would be how it would work.
That clarifies it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Director Southcott.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So with regard to the requirements you were speaking to, BCHL is making in order to create a greater sustainability or greater accountability, I guess would be the better word. And amounts like the $50,000 that you quoted, essentially contributed by the city, be included in what would otherwise be an expense. And what I'm more interested in is this town being a volunteerism-based town in many ways, and it always has been. Can that kind of provision in kind be included in your financials in order to satisfy those requirements?
No, unfortunately, they can't be. They have to be real. It has to be real numbers. We've estimated that the contribution that volunteer staff right now, such as myself and Joe and a couple other people, are contributing towards reducing our expenses in order to obviously increase our profitability, is somewhere to the tune of about $350,000. But that can't be taken into account. All it does essentially is when you look at our expenses compared to all the other BCHL teams, which they share with us in October of every year at the midterm meetings in the Lower Mainland. I'm privy to that because I'm on the Board of Governors. They give you an idea of what all the other teams are spending. We have the lowest expenses in the league, but they're artificially low because of the lack of salaries associated with other key positions, which are actually being staffed by every other team in the BCHL.
If I may just quickly, doesn't that put communities like ours with a probably far less revenue generating capacity at a disadvantage? And wouldn't the BCHL consider that? And has anybody thought of addressing that? Or am I off like on a tangent somewhere here?
No, you're not off on a tangent. It is something that's certainly come up at many of our Board of Governors meetings, is the inequity between the haves, the have-nots, the large markets versus the smaller markets. As a scorecard, should it be more flexible relative to the size of the market and their ability to either generate revenue or reduce their expenses? These are hot topics which are fairly commonly conversations that we have, whether it be at the formal meetings or afterwards. Most teams accept that, well, we don't have to get 100% on the scorecard. We just have to try to get as high as we can because that means we're going to be more successful. And I agree with that to a point, but I would certainly like to see more flexibility relative to the size of the market and what you have in the way of generating revenue. However, I will also point out that that if the team was being run by a professional organization, such as a large commercial enterprise or something that would purchase the team, they would probably have a lot more in the way of either expertise or staffing to be able to generate additional revenues from camps, those types of things, which we don't because we just don't have the resources. So I believe that we have a very sustainable market here. I believe we have a market which could ultimately, if not be totally profitable, could be break even, but we're not in that position now. And one of the major reasons is because society recognized 3.5 years ago that they can't do it themselves anymore. They need the right people at the wheel to do it, because the 90% of our directors work for a living in other jobs.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so is the board okay with allowing Director Elliott to speak? So please be brief. We're already double the time for questions. So go ahead, Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. My question has more to do with the business end of things, in that the city of Powell River is prohibited, and I imagine the regional district, from helping a business. So when you're marketing it as a for sale entity and has a franchise value, the cost side of things will change dramatically when you can't get gaming grants from the like in-kind grants from the city or grant. So those numbers would have to immediately be part of the cost side. That must be challenging. And how are we trying to sell that? How does that make that a viable sales project?
I have, in the current conversations I have with two prospective buying entities, groups, I've been very transparent relative to that particular point, being that now staff wages are artificially low, grants that are associated with our gaming, as well as our ability to have game day 50/50s and other fundraising activities because we're a nonprofit. Some of those things obviously would go away unless there was something structured to facilitate us being still somewhat involved. And there are ways of actually doing that. There are a few clubs in the BCHL that used to be societies that were purchased by private entities that still have societies involved with them that are still able to contribute to the financial well-being of those franchises through their operations. So there are ways to structure things, and that's part of the salesmanship that we're trying to do associated with selling the franchise to potential interested parties, is just making sure that they understand what the costs are right now, that they're not going to be those costs in the future, including the potential of the city providing the kind of support that they have in the past. But I will say this, that regardless of whether there's a private entity owning the club or whether it's still the society, the contribution this team makes to the social fabric and the economic fabric of this region and this town are far-reaching and considerable, and they would be the same regardless, whether it was private or as we are now.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Garvey. Thanks for coming before us, and we will be considering this later today.
Thank you very much.
Okay, item 4.4 on our agenda, we have Carl MacNaughton from the Nature Trust of BC. Is Carl in the room or on the...
Hello, I'm in computer land.
You're on computer land. Okay, well, you've got up to 10 minutes to present to us, and then we'll have a round of questions for you. So
Great.
The floor is yours, the virtual floor.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to the regional district staff and representatives. It's a pleasure to talk to you today. My name's Carl MacNaughton, and I'm a conservation land manager with the Nature Trust of British Columbia. Just a bit of a backgrounder, the Nature Trust is a not-for-profit land trust that was established in 1971, and we acquire ecologically significant lands throughout the province of BC by purchase and donation. Today I'll be talking to you a little bit about Savary Island, our conservation area there. We've been working to secure land on Savary Island since 2002. And after 20 years of fundraising and negotiating, we were able to secure a 350-acre conservation area in 2018 with the support of many donors. It's a really important conservation area for the residents of Savary Island, as well as tourists that go there in the summer. It's an important ecological space, as well as a recreation area for community members. And the biggest problem that we have ecologically on Savary Island is an invasive plant called Scotch broom. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the bright yellow flowers when it comes to blooming time. Although a very pretty plant, it's a colonizer of disturbed sites and coastal sand dune ecosystems. So it quickly takes over any native plant populations wherever it goes, forming a monoculture. It's also a big fire hazard as well, because it's quite a flammable species full of oils. And so it's a danger to the conservation area and as well as to adjacent private properties. Fire risk is a major concern to the Savary Island residents. We get calls quite often on it. And so to reduce wildfire risk, we've contracted a land steward who lives on Savary Island full-time, and he patrols the conservation area to prevent campfires and general burning fires as well, if people think to have a fire in the conservation area. You've probably all heard about the more recent installed fire monitoring system called SenseNet, which is although it's not our initiative, it's going to be a big help with some early detection system for fires. But we do still need to reduce fuels to prevent wildfires, regardless of how much patrolling and sensing we can do. So one of our biggest areas that we're able to have some impact is in removing Scotch broom. It's a significant component of what we do on Savary Island. So the way we've been doing it over the past few years is we have a conservation youth crew that goes out generally 4 times a year at least, and they spend a few days on Savary Island removing Scotch broom and coordinating a volunteer event when they're there as well. So we get local volunteers, whoever's in town, or rather on island, if they want to come out and help out with the effort. And we've had some great success with that over the years. So we've been basically we've funded these activities to date, the youth crew activities out on island, by a combination of our own internal endowment funds and then federal species at risk grants. Unfortunately, the federal grants are starting to dry up during the current climate of federal fiscal responsibility, but we've seen that for a few years now. So we're really hoping that the regional district could help out with some grant and aid to replace a portion of those federal funds, so that we can continue with our Scotch broom efforts. So as you've probably seen in your package, the project on an annual basis costs about $28,700, give or take. And we've got $7,000 internal funds. We've got some federal funding that's secured that lasts until this March 31st coming up, with $3,000. It's called Priority Places, and it's specifically to target invasive plant removal in areas with high species at risk concentrations, such as on the dune ecosystems at Savary. We're also hoping to get some Canada Summer Jobs. We apply every year, and it's I don't know if a lot of you've probably had experience with Canada Summer Jobs over the years, but it can be somewhat hit or miss on how long of a term you get for a student or whatnot. So it's yeah, we're hit or miss on that one, but we're hoping for the best. We also count on some volunteer labor with that as well. We've estimated that at about $2,000 worth. So that puts us at a shortfall of about $7,200, and we're hoping that the regional district can help us out with that. And
Thank you, Mr. MacNaughton. And we'll consider that request later today, but first we will see if someone around the table has any questions for you. Director Lennox.
Yep, thank you, and thanks, Carl, for your presentation. It's a no-brainer if you look at, well, especially the south side of Savary at that right time of year, it's completely yellow. So, and I'm a broom buster over on our side, and so I can relate to the amount of effort it takes to go at that and keep going. It does relate to our official community plan that we're working on right now. Obviously, the high risk of fire is high on everybody's minds, and I have there's a discussion. We just had a slope stability report that we had a webinar on, which was very interesting. And one of the things that was identified that anything, I guess, Scotch broom included, will help to stabilize a lot of those slopes. So I think, where my question's leading is, if we're going to be removing those, you probably have some parameters around what type of slopes you're attacking, and maybe not the ones that need to be maintained stability wise. Is that a fair assessment? And maybe any comments on if we're going to remove Scotch fir, what are we going to replace it with?
Yeah, you hit it right on the nail on the head there. I mean, there's no shortage of broom on Savary Island, as you can imagine, especially on that south slope, and the old airstrip that runs down the middle of the island as well. But the primary concern from a species at risk perspective is that south slope. The contorted pod evening primrose is the little plant that kind of stands as a bit of a figurehead for all things coastal sand ecosystems. We target those areas that are more of a shallow slope, like from on the south side it'd be kind of Duck Bay. There's no houses or anything like that above it because it's just the Nature Trust property upland from the place where we work. I was just over there last week and certainly had a good look at the Scotch broom all along the Nature Trust property there. And there's definitely a lot of areas where we wouldn't want to tackle it, i.e. really steep slopes. We don't have anybody living right above us, but you just don't want to take the chance that you're going to, undermine somebody's house or livelihood. So we definitely go for the spots that are easy to walk on, you know, easy to remove, and yeah, we're not tackling steep slopes, so rest assured.
Thanks, and I'll try to get over there and help as best I can too. I think it's important, like you said, there's a lot of volunteerism. You identified a couple things that I did as well. One of the things in the application that I'm looking for is we are involving youth, right? Summer jobs. Hopefully we can, this is the type of work that youth can get out and do. I did that way a million years ago and got some of that grant money to work for the QRD. So I mean, these are things that we should be teaching youth, and I think that would be great. We support that, and the volunteer labor and the other grants. So I guess the final thing is it enough? And even within the Nature's Trust property, the scope of the work there, is this, I think we're going to be ongoing at this for some time. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's fair to say that Scotch broom isn't going away. It's always going to be a component of these coastal sand dune ecosystems. You'll never be able to get rid of all of it, but if we can, right now it's such a high magnitude that it really is a serious detriment to wildfire safety and the ecological community there. I think we can and we have been making great strides over the past few years, and even ramping up each year, having more visits. So we're actually getting quite a good swath of land across the south end of Savary Island, where it's free of the grown plants of Scotch broom. So we go over in the wintertime, we cut the broom, and then you burn it below the low tide mark. And then in the summertime we can go out, and because there's no burning allowed, and we pull the seedlings in the areas that we treated in the wintertime. So it's kind of it's a great process to be able to get out there all times of year and make things happen.
Thanks. Fight the good fight.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I have a very brief question, maybe more of a comment. So Scotch broom, of course, is a huge problem, and I think you can't get rid of it really in a practical sense. The seed bed lasts up to 30 years long. The Canadian Forest Service has some really good information on it, but the seeds can last up to 30 years or even longer, and it's very fire adapted. It's actually not from Scotland; it's from North Africa originally. So the question I have briefly is how much are you really relying on getting community support for this by talking about the fire risk parts? I'm really happy to hear the two being talked about together. Of course, Nature Trust's interest is in the ecological part, and I think that's super important, but the community, some people in the community might be really inspired to come out to, reduce fire risk.
Yeah, we're definitely including as part of our information package when we put it out there, and more so in the future. I mean, fire, it's always been an important thing to consider in Savary Island, but it feels like just in recent years it's come up more and more amongst the residents. They're increasingly concerned with drier conditions of having fire escape from the property, and we're certainly not in a position to go clear cut conservation lands to cut down fire risk. We like to keep things with natural life cycles of the forest, but one thing that's not part of the natural life cycle is the Scotch broom. So certainly area we can take one of the more flammable pieces in the property and do some good for the ecology as well. So
thank you.
Point taken very well, and we will increase our that in our asks for volunteers.
That's great, because I mean broom kind of wants to burn. It does well.
Sure
First
does.
thing to come back. Well, thank you very much for coming to us. We'll be considering this later on, and
pleasure.
I wish you all the best with reducing the broom load.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Okay, so on to the next item, number 4.5, Gary Shilling from Qathet Film Society. I don't know if Mr. Shilling's in the room. There you are. The floor is yours. You have up to 10 minutes, and then we will follow with some questions.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Gary Shilling. I'm the Executive Director of the Qathet Film Society, and it's actually 4 years ago last month that we purchased the historic Patricia Theatre. We raised half of the purchase price in the community, $250,000 from the community, and then received capital funding from BC Gaming to match that and own the theatre outright. And since then, as a charitable nonprofit, we've received funding from the federal government, from the provincial government, and from the local community forest to restore the Patricia Theater. We're like this close to completing our restoration. It's just some trim and some drains, and it's been a remarkable 4 years for us for like a number of reasons. You know, we have great management of the theater and Laura Wilson, who's really community minded, has brought more youth into the theater, connections with community, connections with the local chapter of Cinema Politica, which brings really good discussion films. In 2022, we renamed the Film Society the Qathet Film Society, removing Powell from the name of our organization, one of 50 organizations in the community to do the same. And in 2023, we began the 3 years Indigenous Film Festival, which is now funded through ongoing funding from the First Credit Union and from Telefilm Canada. And in 2024, we shut down the theater for 2 months and restored the interior, restored the reproductions of the murals that are inside the theater that make it one of the few atmospheric theaters in the country. Put new seating in so people don't have to bring their own cushions with them anymore. And also updated our concession and lobby and put in a heat pump to give air conditioning in the summer. And we now feel like we really brought the theater back to its kind of historic charm, as well as bringing in some modern comfort. The Film Festival, which I'm here to talk to you about, 2024 was our most successful film festival, brought us back to pre-COVID numbers. As you may know, maybe experience yourself, post-COVID, it's harder and harder to get people off the couch and out to different places. And we're doing a good job of that. We had great audience levels. The audience response was tremendous. 2 Canadian documentaries were the top choices of the audience. One of them being The Stand, which is about Haida protecting their lands from logging, and the other one called So Surreal, about the influence of Indigenous mask making on the surrealists in Europe. Both really fascinating films. You also support us for our youth camp that we run in the summer, which is one of a kind experience, a 4-day intensive camp where the youth works with local filmmakers. So it's a great experience for local filmmakers and to get experience in mentoring, and for the youth to learn media literacy, which is increasingly important in the world today. And we now also do National Canadian Film Day, where we showcase Canadian films and bring the audience to appreciate that. We actually do show about 16 Canadian films annually in our theater, which is really a significant number. Our film festival this year, it'll be the 3rd out of the last 4 years where we highlight locally produced film. The Film Society has at its mandate to not just culturally enrich the community with film and film-related production, but to attract production here and to bring the economic benefits of it as well. So this year we'll be featuring the film produced by Klamath Nation called Namesake, which is all about around the issues of naming in the community. That will be our opening film. Last year it was Anne-Marie Fleming's film that was locally produced here around the problems with aging and climate change. Can I Be a Witness, it was called, about the idea of perhaps people ending their lives at age 50 as a way to reduce the load on the environment. Fascinating film. And next year, yeah, we'd all be dead, I guess. Okay. A couple of people in the room would still be here.
Might lose quorum.
And last summer, the film based on East of Eden, the book by Kurt Vonnegut's son, Mark Vonnegut, that was filming here. That brought a lot of activity to the community, and that hopefully will be our opening film next year. We have the community engaged in the selection of our films. We have a programming committee made up of local filmmakers, film buffs, and members of our board. And so we're in the final process of doing our film selection right now. So I'm here seeking funding for that film festival. ticket sales make up about 50% of our budget, and the other 50% comes from not just the regional district and the city, but we get funding from the province, from BC Arts Council. We have local businesses that sponsor films that bring money to the film festival as well. And we do, for the moment, operate on a break-even basis and hope to continue to do so. And that's about it from me. Taking up less time. I hope you can gain some time here.
Well, thank you very much. We're always appreciative of a few extra minutes. We'll see if there's questions around the table. Does anyone have any questions? Director Elliott, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Shilling. Thanks for being here. And I have two questions. One of the questions is about reporting of funding from the city didn't include community forest grants, and is that because it's from a previous year and that was 2024, was it? Or
it's actually 2022.
2022.
And this has been
it's been a while.
It's been a long, we're down to like trim and drains and 1 foot of handrail, and as you know, the last 10% in any project can feel like the hardest. Yes. So that is not in our budget anymore. In fact, as you may know, the community forest funds 70% of the project. So we received that 70%. We've spent 100% of it, and will, in fact, it's on our financials as a receivable, because we'll get roughly $30,000 back from the city that we've already invested into the project when we do finally complete and get our architect in.
Hold back part of it is what you're talking about, yeah.
Hold back, yeah.
So then I love the film festival. My other question is, you have this other project that we also fund, which is the camp.
Yes.
Does that come as a separate application for a grant from this one?
Yes.
And so that you kind of do that one in the spring and this one in the fall?
Yes. I've been doing that for the last few years.
And what did just help me remember, what did the QRD do for the spring grant for the?
I think it's the same $2,000, yeah.
Okay. Great, thank you.
And we get our city money through the art gallery.
Yes, the city funds the Art Council to manage the granting program for the arts.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Mr. Shilling? Seeing none. Oh, Director McCormick, go ahead.
Thank you. Do all your productions take place at the Patricia? And would you consider bringing a production out to Texada sometime? Say, or a community hall with a great big huge screen that would have trouble fitting in this room.
You have to look at that as a separate. Our main goal is to bring activity to the Patricia Theatre, and certainly the films that we program there. If there was a community group on Texada that wanted to bring a film in and was looking for support, I'm not exactly sure how we do that, but we bring support.
Okay, I'll let some people know. I know there's people who are interested but don't go because of the ferry cost. So
there was a year and a half ago or something a film that was created by a lady on Texada that was
virtual reality
film festival.
Yes, we had the virtual reality. It was on Texada and at the theater and at the art gallery. Yeah, that was a great project.
Great. Well, thank you
for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other hands, and we'll be considering this request later on today if we get there. Thank you for coming before us.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4.6, Mickey Adam, Patricia Winchell, and Brooke Hansen from qathet Regional Cycling Association. I see someone in the room there, so thank you for coming before us, and you have up to 10 minutes to present, and then we will ask questions if there are any around the table.
Thank you, Chair and Board, for having me. My name is Mickey Adam. I'm a cyclist, mountain bike cyclist. I work with the Chain Gang. We're looking to request money today for the Duck Lake Trail Network. And what that will entail is signage, like road signage from the highways up to Duck Lake area, and in the Duck Lake area to direct you to Squirrel Crossing or the Burma parking lot. We're also looking for funding for an outhouse, which will be in the Burma parking lot. There's none in the Duck Lake area, that part at this time. And trail maintenance finance, I think ongoing trail maintenance is what we're looking to do. And part of the chain gang is to maintain our trails. We do build a few, but not that many. And we maintain not just for mountain bikers, we're a multi-trail maintainer for hikers, runners, motos, horsies. We maintain the Duck Lake area and West Lake as well. And sometimes we get out to Suncoast to do maintenance out there. The mountain biking community has started to grow in our area, and we're starting to see tourism. And we're trying to better enhance our areas to bring more of these people in. This year, I think we have a membership of 440, a paid membership, and then all the others that just ride. We do see a lot of island and local seashell people come to ride, as well as Vancouver, and we're seeing Albertans come to ride our cross country. I know our downhill is taking off, but we're starting to see more. I guess they're backing on each other to bring people in to start riding our community, which will bring in, we're hoping, a better tourism aspect. If you start looking out there now, you see mountain bikes in the back of everybody's vehicles. So it's starting to work for us, and the outdoors is a healthy place for people to be. So if we can portray a better aspect in the bush, I think it would be better for people in our community and outside our community to have, you know, outdoor bathroom and signage. And really, that's about what I have to say. Is it's a good thing for the environment and for the people of this community.
Thank you very much. Are there questions? I have a question, but I'll pass around the table first to see if someone, Director Gisborne.
Hello, thank you, Chair. My question is, do you get any funding from ORA?
Yes, we do. Patricia can speak on that. Ms. Winchell, we do have money from ORA, and that is split between the groups like the Mahoney and the Duck Lake area, and that's a lot to do with fuel and mileage and equipment.
Right, he's right there. There's Patricia.
Ms. Winchell, or did you have an answer to that question?
Yeah, Mickey's covered it. The funding we get from ORUG covers a portion of our annual expenses for trail maintenance supplies and equipment, tools, maintenance on tools, for just the regular ongoing operations of the organization, of the QRCA and Chain Gang combined.
Thank you. That's my question, Chair.
Thank you. Director Brander.
Thanks, Chair. I know a lot of work has happened out in the Mount Mahoney area in the last number of years, and a lot of the trails out there are a bit more advanced. I know there's been some trails added recently that are more medium level, but do you guys see improvements in the Duck Lake area to be essentially attracting a new type of clientele, because now it's not just the more advanced riders, but
Yes, we're working with Community Force, Chris Lang, to move some of our trails into the riparian zones. We've talked to the QRCA about trails in the Duck Lake area, because most of ours are cross country over there. We have 3 on the section 57 with rec sites that will be blue downhill flow. So blue is like an easier downhill where more people can start to move from cross country to the downhill aspect. That would allow them to get the skills and confidence to move to the Mount Mahoney side. So those will be the 3 new trails that the Chain Gang are putting in. The Chain Gang's all volunteer work. We have about 20 members. Roughly we get 8 to 10 on our scheduled days. We schedule 2 days a week, Monday and Wednesday, that we work in the bush doing maintenance, and then days after if there's wind down or whatever. But yes, we are moving to some of the trails to be blue flows instead of cross country on the off the Green Road down, if you know the Duck Lake area, which will help people get confidence to move to the Mahoney side without going over and hurting themselves.
And if I may, Chair, I suppose it also means that if families or riders of different interests or levels come to town, it's offering something for everybody.
Yeah, it doesn't have the whole downhill thrill aspect. It's more sideways, up and down. Even though our downhill is slower and technical, but the 3 new trails that we've proposed to put in there will speed that up a little bit.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. Thank you. Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. My question has to do with how we cooperate and coordinate with the community forest. And in particular, you're asking for mapping products, which the community forest would produce as part of their planning anyways, and whether the community forest is aware of the where these trails intend to be and whether that works for them. And if you've asked them directly if they would be wanting to participate in having signage that helps them with the management of their forest and the people's use of the trails.
I will try to answer part of that, and Patricia might have another side of it. All our signs are mapped, like the kiosks and trail forks. So when we build a trail, we actually put it on a map, which goes on what they call trails.
Have that app.
Which is, I would suggest everybody that doesn't have it goes in the bush, get it, get rid of all the others, use trail forks. It's the safe one to use in our area. But we work closely with Chris Lang and our trails. And when we go and walk a trail, he will go walk it. He GPSs it. We bring in the First Nations, Tla'amin, to do their ARC study, which the community force helps us with. And then those go on to the trail forks. And then we have a group that does images that redo our signs.
So they do help you get your mapping.
Yes, through the GPSing and all that. Chris checks everything out, and then we work with him on what's going to be logged, what's not going to be logged, when is it going to be logged, so we're not having any of those conflicts.
Right, and so you're trying to produce actual visual maps from all of that.
Yes.
To post or put in your trail forks.
Yeah, so when you look at your trail forks and you look at the kiosk map, it'll be identical.
Okay. Thank you for that answer.
Thanks. And I don't know if Ms. Winchell had anything to add to that since her name came up.
Thank you. I do just want to add that kind of the funding request for this is to publish the signs and build a kiosk and have kind of location markers out in the field for a lot of it's for safety, so that when people are out enjoying the trails, if they get lost, they have a they have a location identifier and have a easier time of knowing where they are when it's so easy to get turned around out there. So that's part of it. Is a big part of it is that the signage is a safety aspect as well.
So seeing that we're out of time, is the committee okay if I ask my question briefly? Which is just, I have a question. So one of the items is the outhouse, and it's a pump out outhouse. So I see the project has the capital costs in there. So the question is about operations. Is the chain gang going to maintain this? I mean, outhouses need someone some point to go around, pump out. And I presume you've thought about this, but just maybe a few comments on how this will be pumped out and maintained.
I think we will probably be discussing with the QRC with Patricia as they do their two at Mahoney to pump this out. As for cleanliness and maintenance, the chain gang's in there 2 days a week for sure, 3 to do the maintenance and scheduling and cleanup of it. As the pump house, I think we would still use the same company that does the ones at Mahoney, which would probably be once a year, depending on use.
Yeah, we haven't even had to do the ones out at Mount Mahoney yet, but it would be a similar model that the funds for the operations will come from the QRCA and our operating budgets, with the maintenance by volunteers, exact model that we've done with the Mount Mahoney, the new toilets out at Mount Mahoney.
Okay, that's great. It sounds quite incremental to what's already going on, which is very good. Okay, well, thank you very much. I don't see any other hands up, but thank you for coming before us and presenting, and we'll be considering this later in the meeting.
Thank you for having you spend time with me today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, item 4.7 is Bud Graham, Association of the Savary Island Committee. I don't know if Mr. Graham's in the room or on the... Online. I don't see Mr. Graham. Do you hear us?
Okay, there we go.
Oh, okay. That's great. So you have up to 10 minutes to present to us, and then we will maybe ask some questions from around the table.
Okay, thank you very much. The Savary Island Committee, it's called ASIC, the Association of the Savary Island Community, is a nonprofit property owners association. We represent the entire island of Savary Island. We have a board of directors. We have opportunities for 3 directors in each of the 3 areas of the island that we've designated. And we currently have 5 directors elected, so we still have some vacancies in this. This organization has been around since about 2008. We're officially registered under the Societies Act, and we follow all of the rules and procedures associated with that. We do our own fundraising activities, but we have a need for looking for some local support, and we put in a request for a grant and aid last year, and we're continuing that for this year. We found it very useful to help us keep our operations going. And basically what we are involved with is education and information. We provide property owners with valuable insights on events and ongoing activities that impact the Savary Island life. We channel feedback to the RD on current issues and sentiments on the island and property owners' priorities. We conduct community surveys and report to our members. We communicate with the Ministry of Transportation and the Savary Island Volunteer Fire Department on the impact of road conditions and dust on residential health and safety. We communicate with the RCMP on Savary Island concerns, and we follow up and review visitor impacts on resources and beaches. We provide community digital calendar and ongoing publication of events on Savary and around the regional district. And we provide a communications vehicle for the QRD's messaging to Savary Island Property Owners Association. So our request is for $2,200 to support the ongoing activities of the Savary Island Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions around the room? Director Lennox.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Bud, for your presentation. I'm very well aware of, especially during the last 3 years, of ASIC's activities, and appreciate your advocacy for the community. I guess one question is, over the years, the mandate of your committee has changed, I would believe, right? Roads and dust and different safety issues. What's the most current, I guess, mandate or priority for your committee as of today?
Well, roads have been an ongoing commitment on the island for a long period of time. And the difficulty of getting anybody in the Ministry of Transportation to understand that conditions are changing on the island, the population is growing, traffic counts on the island are much higher than the ministry perceives them to be, and that's why we've bought our own traffic counters so that we can get accurate data to quantify the kinds of activity that is taking place on the island. That is one of the main things that we've been working on, but also, as our surveys have done, fire protection is also a major issue for people on the island. And, we're trying to use the Fire Smart programs and other activities like that to help encourage people to deal with the fuel control on their properties and try to help with the safety issues associated.
Thank you. And I just, I guess looking, you mentioned the traffic counter, and this is an example of, just for the other directors and people listening, where we've, made a request several times over the years from Ministry of Transportation and Transit to engage providing a traffic counter, and we get back the classic form letter, it's not available in your area sort of thing. And so we got some help from the city originally, and now this just shows how far our community groups need to go to try to get just some basic information. So now they've raised and purchased the counter. So thanks for that, and we'll be discussing this a bit later. I don't have any other questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for on the table? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Graham, for coming before us. ASIC does a lot of good work. We hear about it all the time, and we will be considering this request a bit later in the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, so we are now finished all the delegations. Is everyone okay to carry on? I see Director Gisborne putting his hand up. I was going to suggest maybe a 5-minute break. Is that what you're?
I was gonna ask for a bio break until 2:35, Chair.
That was exactly what I saw you starting to move a bit. So yes, we can take a break for 5 minutes. We'll get back to order in 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair.
Woohoo.
Recording in progress.
Okay, we're back in session for the Finance Committee, and up next is item 6.1 in correspondence. Correspondence section. There is only one item of correspondence. Would anyone like to pull it? Director Southcott, so it's pulled, which is appropriate. Okay, item that's 7.1, so we'll move on to that item. So this is from the Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Climate Leadership Steering Committee. What would you like to do with it, Director Southcott?
Thank you, Chair. I would certainly like to, I'd like the board to consider commitment to the $1,200 that VICC's Climate Leadership Committee is asking for. Again, there's a whole lot of leverage going on here as far as value. Although beyond the reports that the board has heard from me over the last year that I've been appointed to this committee, which really is not that much, there is the CAA basically is Community Energy Association is managing this as a secretariat kind of capacity. CEA and the group that's listed in the of people who are sitting on this committee represent a tremendous amount of talent. We all recognize that there are a lot of priorities in our lives now, affordability and everything else under the sun, and many threats facing us. So climate has really slid in a way. It still can be, the way I'm looking at it is it can be leveraged into an awful lot of the other concerns that we have. And for $1,200, we're investing in not only a direct connection by having me on that committee, but also, and that's the smaller part of this. The larger part is the brain trust and the work that's going on more collectively, and it relates to lobbying or advocacy with the province and with other agencies, FCM as well. And so I think it's very worthwhile investment to keep our foot in the door in leverage as far as climate considerations go. I know our staff already is very much of this mind, but I appreciate the board's commitment that we keep this as a forefront concern and continue to apply a lens of climate, at the very least, to all the other concerns that we have these days. Thank you.
Do I hear that as a motion to support the $1,200 request?
I'd make that motion. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'll second that, or Director Lennox will second it. So question or debate on that, Director Lennox?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I appreciate Director Southcott's comments. You know, when I read this correspondence and I look at the list of 8 or 9 different objectives that the collaborators have achieved, right, it is more than just having some meetings. And what I would just simply say is that the people in Area A still want us to represent the environment. And this is one way that we can do it for a reasonable cost. And I think it's a reduction, if I read that correctly, it's a bit of a reduction to try to maintain some traction, but also be cognizant of costs. So like I said, I know face-to-face people in Area A have said that we need to maintain our focus on the environment. I agree. I've heard some stuff in the media lately that it's not top 3 anymore. It doesn't really matter. It's still forefront for people as far as this effort in balance. So I think it's worth the effort and the cost. Thanks.
Great. Director Elliott, and then Director Gisborne, and then Director McCormick. Go ahead, Director Elliott.
Good, Chair. When I sat where Director Southcott's sitting, I thought it was an excellent collaboration between different regional districts to try and work together. The funding of similar types of deliverables on our own would be considerably more expensive and would maybe be prohibitive for us to work on those things if we didn't do them together. So I like that we're being supported and participating with other regional districts on an initiative that's clearly important to the future of the planet and our area, as well as other areas. The knowledge gained through how various other regional districts are doing projects like their flood mapping and so forth, and what they're using it for and how they're doing it, provides a really great network, and staff can benefit from that, as well as our participation on that actual committee. So I do support continuing with it. It's good value for the dollars there. I guess my question is, we're at the finance committee, so we're recommending to send this to the board at this point, or what is it exactly we're doing?
Would be recommending to go to the board, but our corporate officer can clarify what we are doing here.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Exactly what we're doing.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, we can't make the final. We can just okay. Director Gisborne and then Director McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. Well, my question is a little similar to Director Elliott says, and what are we doing? And I'm wondering, where is the money going to come from? Which silo is it? I might have missed that when the motion came out. Is it a general grant and aid, or?
That was my question, which is great. So, the corporate officer.
I also noted which service. I assume that we would. I believe last year this came through the waste management service, but I'm not entirely certain. So, when you see it on the board agenda, it will show you which service it's coming out.
Okay.
If you pass it.
Yes, if it passes.
Okay, carry on, Director Gisborne.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was just curious because if we're talking about it coming out of, waste management or general administration, it wouldn't really have much of an impact on our discussions later today. But if it's going to come out of, say, like general grant and aid, I think it absolutely would have an impact on what we're going to discuss later today. So hearing that it has other options and we'll find out what comes to the board, I'm happy. Thanks, Chair.
Great. Director McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. I support the recommendation. We've had lots of applications for money for projects, specific projects, things that people want to do. So it's maybe harder to wrap our heads around something that's abstract and ongoing and advocacy, and as their role. But I do think it's important, and I think it's important that we continue on doing this work. I have a question though to staff. We've just considered, or we're about to consider all of these other requests. Why would this request be different than the others? Why is this not being considered together with all of the other grant requests that we're receiving? Why is this one different?
Well, I mean, I'll let the corporate officer answer. But I think part of the answer from my perspective is we're kind of part of this. We have representatives on this committee. It's a committee of the VicCL is a committee of local government reps, so it's not quite the same as a society, and nor are they probably a society. They probably aren't even, they may not even be eligible to apply. So I think those are two reasons. It's a bit different, but maybe the corporate officer can provide a clearer answer than I am.
So much, Director Fall or Chair Fall. I do think that this would be better suited for Linda Greenan, Manager of Financial Services, and we don't currently have a camera on them, but we will get one.
Through the chair, thank you. Yes, this is like a sponsorship. It's a contribution towards this committee, not a contribution to a nonprofit society. So that's why we would probably take it from the waste management service, because it's toward the committee that represents the community.
Okay, all right, thank you. And I like taking it from the waste management service. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I just have one comment, which I support this. I think for approximately 5 cents a person in the region, it's we get a pretty good bang for the dollar. This group does a lot of stuff, and if we even are able to use a tiny fraction of it, it's more than we'd be able to do. We have we some years ago we declared a climate emergency, and we have a climate action plan. It's it's woven into everything we do to a point, but this group can provide some information that's really relevant for local governments, and for the amount of money it leverages. So we contribute $1,200. That leverages up to a very that's a very modest amount, leverages up to continue the good work of this group that can focus on what local governments can do And if we benefit from that, that's a lot more than us trying to do anything alone. I mean, $1,200, you'd have to, one thing, that'd be 100 years to hire a consultant to do some of these things. So, so I support it. Are there any, and so I guess to be clear also, the motion is, the wording of the motion, we haven't articulated, but I think it's something like the committee recommend to the board that the board support a $1,200 request to VICC CL. Something like that. Is that close enough, corporate officer? And so if that's clear enough for everyone, and I don't see any other hands, maybe we'll call the question. All those in favor of this motion? None opposed, carried unanimously. Very good. Okay, on to item reports. So the first one is item 8.1, the Canada Summer Jobs Grant Report. What's the will of the committee? Director Lennox?
I'll move the recommendation in the report.
Okay, very good. Seconded by Director Gisborne. Is there any discussion on this item? Director Lennox?
Yeah, just quickly, we were kind of talking about summer jobs grants, and you can see how important it is to accomplish some of the actual actions out there in the field when you put bodies into those jobs. And it really makes a big difference for students and youth that are trying to make a little bit of money during their summer and other times. Thanks.
Yeah, Director Gisborne and then Director Elliott.
Just one question, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer. Based on the motion, we're applying for the grant, but any costs not covered by the grant be funded through the Regional Parks and Cemetery Service. If the grant is unsuccessful, we're still going to hire the summer student and we'll just pay for the whole thing out of taxation. Is that correct?
Mr. Devereaux, is that the idea?
Through the chair, that is correct. These are important positions. They help, we need them to function at both campgrounds and the cemetery through the busy months in the summer. So they're necessary supplementary financial assistance is what we're looking for here.
Director Elliott.
My question was similar to Director Gisborne's, but I wanted to know if we were successful with this grant program in the past, and I seem to recall that maybe we didn't get them last year or something.
I think we got it prior years, but not last year. But Mr. Devereaux can clarify for us.
Yes, through the chair. It seems to be we're about on a every second or third year success rate. The parameters seem to change year to year, and I think we're in stiff competition with a lot of organizations looking for the similar benefit. So hopefully this year we come up with the money, but no, we were not successful last year.
The follow-up question is, in our budget, we currently have it budgeted for paying for those students, and this would be additional revenue that might give us some surpluses at the end of the year.
Mr. Devereaux?
Through the chair, that's correct, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just add my comments. I support this, and I also support, the second clause, which is funding it, even if we don't get it. It would be great to get the grant, but I think, as Mr. Devereaux pointed out, it's really important work, but it's also important for our staff to be able to plan. So I think this would give certainty that there will be a summer student and planning can be done about what that work can be. And if we get the grant, then that'd be fantastic. So I don't see any further hands up. Then I will then call the question on the motion as printed in the agenda. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That carries. Okay, item 8.2, which is the cemetery fees and charges bylaw amendment. What is the will of the committee?
I'll move the recommendation.
Second. Moved and seconded by Director McCormick, Director Brander. Is there a discussion on this item? Director Lennox?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Maybe question for Mr. Devereaux. Fairly substantial increases, and I actually agree with the approach. We've got to, like many of our other services, not be subsidizing it through other taxation. And I guess my question is, do we anticipate these kind of substantial 5% sort of every year increases? Like, is it a new era where we have to kind of adjust our asset management? I don't know if you can answer that or not.
Mr. Devereaux, is this chronic?
Through the chair, I'd really prefer to reference this to our general manager of financial services. She's more appropriate on that planning stage of it.
Okay, great. Ms. Greenan, I understand you're in the room there. Is there any? Can you help with this?
Okay, thank you, Chair, through the chair. Yeah, so we are, we could do a 3% increase, which would be in line with, more in line with what the proposed CPI is, or expected CPI. But we do subsidize the cemetery service quite heavily from taxation. So the 5% increase would just get a little bit more from on a user fee basis. So, yes, and we could expect probably at least a 3% increase in future years, depending on what, how the prices and how the costs increase, and what the new contract coming up again, negotiate next year. So depending on what the contract works out at.
Thank you.
That's great. Director Elliott.
I'm in favor of the motion. I think maintaining a cemetery is heavy on the labor side, which tends to go up according to CPI, is how we've been trying to do it. But there's also a capital portion to it that needs to be addressed as well. And so I imagine that's in our capital plan appropriately. But if we aren't keeping up with fees for the cemetery, it then transfer over to taxation, which I think is also an option. But I think keeping a good balance of fees in line with actual cost is helpful.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, then I will call the question as in the agenda. All those in favor? None opposed, carried unanimously. Very good. So we are on to item 8.3, which is the new Columbaria for Powell River Regional Cemetery item. What is the will of the committee?
Move the recommendation.
Okay, moved by Director Brander. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Director Southcott. Okay, discussion on the Columbaria. Director Brander.
Thanks, Chair. It's a large price tag, but it sounds like we need it. And under financial impact, it shows the expected return from sales is greater than the expense. So seems like it'll pay for itself.
Thank you. And although Lasqueti Island is not a participant in the cemetery service, I think Columbaria can be really useful. A lot of people make use of them, and they can also be more affordable than graves for many people. So I think I think it's a really useful thing to add. Is there any further discussion on this item then? Seeing none. Oh, Director Elliott.
Just as per the last item, this is one of the capital things that we were talking about. I imagine that we have reserves affiliated with the cemetery, so I'm just kind of figure out which balance of money that is, like, how are we paying for this and where it's coming from. And I know it's probably in this report, and I just wanted to verify it, I guess.
Okay, well, maybe since that's asking where the money's being paid, I'll hand that to Ms. Green.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the money would come from the cemetery's reserves funds, and there's currently $250,194 in the reserves that are projected at the end of 2025 with interest. So yes, that's where the fund can come from, and then we would just keep replenishing those in future budgets.
Thank you so much.
Great. Okay, so seeing no further hands up, I will then call the question on the motion as in the agenda. All those in favor? None opposed, carried unanimously. Okay, we are on to the big item 8.4, financial assistant intake 2. We have 13 sub-items, which we can go through one at a time. Some of them are joint items, so I think we should probably do them one at a time. Director Gisborne?
Yeah, I was going to request that we deal with number 9 first, as that was something that was dealt with or came up in the first grant intake, and it's kind of unfinished business.
That's it. Is everyone okay with unanimous consent to move that to item, the first one we deal with? Seems fine. Okay, so let's start with that. So item 9 is the recommendation is $2,591.81 to the Trail Riders Club. Director Gisborne?
Wondering if we're allowed to have a brief discussion before it, or would you insist on a motion before the assembly?
If you have comments, I think, yeah, brief discussion would be okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. The reason I wanted to bring this one up first was, as I said, it is kind of unfinished business from our first intake. And in the spring, the recommendation was for $5,895. And now the recommendation is less than half. And I believe that's because if we fund everything, there's not enough in the pot to actually, give what was the recommendation back in the spring. The other reason why this got delayed was structure needs a new roof. The work has been completed. Grant has been requested. I know we have our policy. The board can consider extenuating circumstances to deviate from the policy. I took a look at the total project cost for $23,578, which is, and in that application, it looks like $10,000 for materials before taxes. Personally, I think even $5,895 is too low, which was the spring amount. And I think $2,591 is a little bit insulting in my personal opinion. But it's not up to me, it's up to the assembly. And I'm trying to find out what the assembly would support. I'm willing, and what I would be willing to push is for $10,138 from general grant and aid to cover the cost of the replacement of the structure that was accidentally demolished in our park. So I guess I'll move the motion, but with $10,138 from general grant and aid.
Is there a seconder for that motion?
For discussion, yes.
Okay, Director Lennox. And we can, the motion can be put in the amount can be amended if needed. So is there discussion on that amount? Director McCormick.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I have a question to staff. What is the impact to our general grant and aid doing that? Do we have that much money there after all of these other things are looked after, or presumably after they've been looked after?
Well, before I pass that to Ms. Green, and the short answer is no. If you look on page 10 of the report, it shows the general grant and aid. We have $26,500 available. There's a table, and the recommended contributions are $26,500. So if this was to pass, then the other ones would have to be reduced by the difference. Ms. Greenan, is that more or less capture it?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, that's correct. The requests exceed the amount of funding that is available in the general grants and aid.
Okay, yeah, Director Gisborne.
Yeah. I think we have to take into account that this application came to us in the first intake, and at the end of the first intake, there was $26,000 remaining, and the other applications that are in our package came in grant intake 2, and I don't think that their application should be punished because we did not make a decision in the first intake. Had we made that decision in the first intake, we could have potentially funded the whole thing. So yes, the other grant intakes will have to be shuffled. However, this is a grant application from grant intake number 1. And I do see also that in the staff report, there are some other options, but the other 2 options I think can be fairly onerous on both the organization and our staff, and require a lot of paperwork. And I think the easiest way is to provide a grant, and I think that's a respectful way to deal with this issue and move forward, because it's a structure that's in one of our parks, and as I understand, they're not able to remove danger trees. That kind of goes up the chain.
Okay, thank you for that. Is there any other discussion? I'll just comment just so we can be clear on what we're doing here. The staff report, the recommendations include the other 4 groups that are included or as suggestions from or recommendations from general grants and aid are the hockey club has a which is item, whichever item that is. That's item 3, with this recommendation of $8,800 or $8,793. The cycling club, Powell River Cycling, which has a recommendation of around 4,000, bit over 4,000. The Powell River, that's the Regional Cycling Association, which is item 7. The Trails Club is 9, which is the one we're on. The Foundry, which is 10,900 suggestion, that's item number 10. And the youth, right, that's it, item number 10. So together those add up to the 26,000. So if the committee goes forward with this, then we'll have to adjust those to fit accordingly. Okay, so I just wanted to comment on that so we're all clear on what we're doing here. Is there any other discussion on this item? Okay, Director Elliott.
So the number that Director Gisborne is quoting is the amount they applied for. I believe the Foundry was also part of our first round of applications. And so if we're going to be trying to make decisions on first round of applications prior to considering second round, we would need to know which projects are actually in that category and what those add up to. And also, and the Foundry is not being obviously granted the original request either. And so I'm not entirely sure if handling these one at a time without looking at the general procedure that we're trying to, that he's suggesting around, okay, we should probably make a decision on grant in round 1 before we find out what we have left over to make decisions on round 2 and do them in that order. And well, if that's the case, there's more than one project that came in round 1 on this list, and they should be, we should have some figuring out of that and how that works if we're interested in going down that road. That is my comment.
Yeah, Director Brander.
Thank you, Chair. Just reading under option number 1, it clarifies that the regional district is indemnified against all loss, damages, and etc., including property damage. So, while I don't have a problem certainly giving some money towards this organization, I'm not sure if we should be on the hook for the entire amount. Throwing that out there, because we actually don't have any real responsibility in this to pay for any damages caused by a tree falling on a facility. That's all I've got to say.
Director McCormick.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I'm concerned about the loss to the other organizations from making that, going from a $2,000 grant to a $10,000 grant, if I got that right. So I'm not in support of this, to be honest. I'd like to see the money allocated more or less the way it's set out in the report. And I just don't think it's fair to the other organizations to be changing this kind of at the 11th hour of consideration. Wild Ocean Whales was another group that was also rejected in round 1. So there's a number of those groups.
Yeah, Director Gisborne, then Director Lennox.
Yeah, I'd be very happy to deal with the Foundry request second, because that is also one from round 1, and we could actually give 10,000 to this, pass this motion, and there is still enough money to deal with the Foundry request in number 2. Getting into the Kings and the Cycling Club. Cycling Club gets money from ORUG, which we fund, and the Kings get their money from the city by waiving the fees that are collected by the city for the recreation complex, which affects the subsidy that the city has to pay to keep the complex afloat, which we actually pay towards through the sub-regional recreation service. So while the city waives those fees, they're actually also waiving those fees on our behalf. So to say that we're not paying for that, you know, the Kings one, we actually are. So really, there's two that need to be dealt with before we start looking at the second intake. Foundry, this one, we can pass this motion, and then there's still enough money in the bank to provide the full funding to Foundry of the $10,000 or more. And then we can start going on to the second intake, because some years, I think it was a couple of years ago, we funded everything. I think we used up all the funds in general grant and aid in the first intake, and I don't think there was anything left for the second intake. And while we can say, hey, we're not legally responsible for the tree that came down and smashed the building, this is about respecting and appreciating and supporting the nonprofits that are operating in our park, providing a service for our community. I don't think they've really ever asked for funding in the past, and this is kind of like a one-off thing. They're run by volunteers. They don't come bugging us. This is a unique situation, and this isn't changing it at the 11th hour. Well, actually it is, because spring intake was 6,000 and now it's 2,500. So yes, it's changed at the 11th hour. It's been dropped by more than half, and I cannot support that. So if the assembly doesn't want to go with 10,000, you know, then I would expect the assembly to go with, what is it, the original 6,500. But I think it's going to be kind of a slap in the face of the organization to drop it down even further than that. So I'm happy with this one because it's covering the capital, doesn't cover the labor, and hopefully that makes a good working relationship between the nonprofits that are operating in our park. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Director Lennox and then Director Brander.
Thanks, Chair. Excuse me. Just reading option, well, actually all the options, but it was talking about that there is a sublease agreement with Paradise Exhibition Park Society. I'm just wondering, does that lease include any insurances? I might have missed it to help repair this particular shed. I mean, typically those other organizations will have insurance, and I just might have missed the capacity for that to help to pay for some of this. I do, before you get the answer on that, you know, I do think that this is a very, very small amount, and I'd be more prepared to, you know, address that original request, 6 and change or whatever it was. But is there any capacity for insurance of any kind from, or do we even know that?
Ms. Greenan, do we
Thank you,
know
Chair.
this?
Through the chair. Yes, under the lease agreement that we have, we do require that they hold a comprehensive general liability insurance policy inclusive of a you know, a property damage policy. So, you know, that's up to them if they have the right insurance that they want it, if they could make a claim under that insurance.
Thank you. So just, again, correct me if I'm wrong, must have liability, but then there's loss and damage insurance that they could have that may apply.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Director Brander.
My question is very similar to Director Lennox, as I was looking under option 2, and it says that we could suggest that they work with the Paradise Exhibition Park Society to make a property damage claim. I was kind of curious why it was not recommended by staff, because that seems like a logical way to go.
Thank you for that.
Ms. Greenan, is that something, or is that?
Thank you, Chair. I might actually ask that Celine Lilly's answer that question. She worked through the options and authored the report.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. The policy, the grant and aid policy for financial assistance does not have any criteria in it that would preclude this organization from being approved for a grant and aid. So we felt that it would not be right to recommend that they be denied, essentially. So it's up to the board to then decide what they want to do with that. But I didn't think, yeah, it was proper to just recommend that they be denied.
Just a follow-up, Chair. So
yeah, go ahead.
You don't mind. So there's nothing that you know of that would prevent them from making a claim to get the money to rebuild the shed in full.
Yes,
that,
thank you through the chair. I'm sorry. That's correct. I know what is in our lease agreement with the Paradise Exhibition Park Society, but I don't have any knowledge beyond that.
Right. Are there any further? So the motion on the table is 10,500. Is that, or 11,500? Is that correct, Director Gisborne? 50%, right? Director, go ahead, Director Southcott.
Yeah, thank you. Just to extend this last question. Do any of us know whether that was considered? I can't imagine that insurance wouldn't have been considered. I really appreciate the question, but it shows me, again, making assumptions is dangerous. But do we know?
That's where my mind
goes. There's a big question mark here for me. Maybe we don't.
Do we know? Ms. Lillies?
Like, so, I don't know.
Thank you. Through the chair. No, I did not follow up with the Trail Riders Association to ask those questions. I just wanted to provide that as an option here because I can see that it seems like a pretty viable option for them.
Thank you. Director Gisborne. So did we have Mr. Devereaux? Did you have something?
Yes, Chair. Through the chair, I think that our lease covers us that we just say they have to have liability insurance. That's to protect the QRD, right? And we don't mention anything about what kind of insurance they have on their property. Right? I think it'd be presumptuous for us to assume they have it or don't have it or what it entitles, right? And even when they have insurance, it may not cover stuff like trees falling on a building.
Thank you,
Chair.
Yeah, so liability insurance won't rebuild the shed. It'll help someone who gets injured. So I'll speak on this because I haven't actually said much. I think given the amount we have left, I have a hard time with the amount on the motion, but I am willing to go higher than what's in the package because I think that does seem on the very low side. I agree with Director Gisborne in that. There's on that point, there's a option 2 which is higher, and that may even be adjusted a bit, but that option 2 in the agenda, is what is it? 6,700, and that doesn't mean the other items have to be exactly as in that option 2, but I think pushing it up to that level would give them a bit more, maybe into the 1/3 level would be more acceptable. In the 7,000 or something, or 8,000 I'd be more comfortable with. I think going right up to 11, the impact on the other groups just seems like it's a bit higher than we can account for. Director Gisborne?
Yes, if we are uncomfortable with going to 10,000 because we're unsure of how much we'll give the other groups, but if there is money left over after we, potentially deny some of the other groups or adjust their funding, it sounds like there is actually, I don't hear any resistance to giving them $10,000 other than that might impact the other organizations. So if that is the case, then maybe it's prudent to table this motion until we deal with the Foundry, the Kings, and the Cycling Club.
So if that's a motion, if it's seconded, I'd interpret the motion to say table this and then deal until those other three items are dealt with, and deal with those ones next. So we can talk about those ones right away. If that's is that a motion? Is there a seconder for that, Director Lennox? Okay. A motion. Okay. Go ahead, Director Elliott.
So the number you have there is not the number of in the report for, like, they have 5,894.62. So that's different than the 10,001. So where does that number come from?
So if I understand, and Director Gisborne can correct me, but in the actual application, they're requesting $23,000. So Director Gisborne put forward the motion to do 50% of that, 11,500. Option 2 from our staff had an option that would be 6677, and that's higher than that's in this on the top of page 9, and below that is actually showing what it would be if it was 25%. So 25% would be 5,894. So there's some different numbers. I don't know if that helps at all, but that's where the different numbers come from. Director Gisborne?
Close. The number that I came up with is on page 160 out of 260, where there is an attached estimate for the cost to replace the shed. And they have costs for materials, metal roofing, gutters, materials disposal, and labor. What I essentially did was I summed everything up with excluding the labor, and that worked out. And then, of course, didn't add taxes, because that just confuses things. And that came up to about $10,138, and that's where I believe the motion was $10,000, just to cover the material cost. But not covering the actual labor, because it was their decision to hire a company to do the labor rather than getting their volunteers to do it. So when I looked at it, I said, why don't we have a motion to just cover the material cost to replace the shed? That's where that number came from. Thank you,
That's
Chair.
great. So the motion on it before us, which I'll call the vote on, is to table this, deal with the other three first. With this in mind, we'll have this context, so we'll be aware of the impacts on this item, but we'll deal with those, and then we can come back to this one. Is that clear? So I'm going to call the question on voting to table this just for the next three items, sub-items, I should say. All those in favor? None opposed, carried unanimously. So let's move on to, so maybe we'll deal with them in the order they're in there. So the hockey club item, which what's the request? The request was 20,000. The recommendation is lower than that. It was 5,000. There's different options here. 8,700, and option 2 was 5,600. But those are the numbers. But what would the committee like to recommend? Director Gisborne?
I would move that we respectfully deny their grant request.
Okay, is there a
Are you talking
seconder?
about the Kings?
Yeah,
So that we're on the
Kings. Number 3, right?
Yeah, so we're on. So sorry, I'm jumping too quickly here. So yeah, we're dealing with the grant. What we're going to do with the tabled motion was to deal with all the other general grant and aids ones. So we're on item 3, sub-item 3, which is about the Powell River Kings Hockey Club Society, which has in the package has a recommendation of 8,793. Director Gisborne just moved to respectfully deny that amount. Is there a seconder for that? Not seeing anyone. Would someone like to make a motion, a constructive motion, alternate motion to that then?
Point of order, Chair. You think my motion is not constructive to the debate?
Oh, I didn't mean construct. I mean, okay, sorry, I didn't mean it to.
No, seriously, I take offense to that.
No, and let me explain. I didn't mean that way, Director Gisborne. What I meant was a motion that had a positive amount in the grant and aid as opposed to a denial, which was a duly an appropriate motion, and it just wasn't seconded. So it wasn't non-constructive. It was just a zero, so no offense intended. Poor choice of wording. So we have a Director Elliott.
I would make a motion to make their to grant through general grants and aid to the Powell River Kings Hockey Club $5,000.
$5,000. Is there a seconder for that motion? 5,000. So Director Lennox. Okay, so we have 5,000. We have 5,000 on the table. Is there a discussion on this? That would. Okay, Director Elliott and then Director Gisborne.
I'll speak to my question. I don't entirely buy into the concept that you can automatically assume that monies forgiven through the city are also being paid for the QRD, because the amount of budget in whole that currently we're contributing from the QRD falls short of the portion that should be attributed to the regional district. And so there's a shortfall in that funding that exceeds the amount of $60,000. And so I reject your argument on that one. And grants and aid is also contributed to by the city. So you're not only contributing at the city through grants in kind, this grant parcel that we're looking at is also contributed to by the city. So that's almost a double dipping kind of thing to go. Plus, the Powell River Kings benefit from capital infrastructure that we build at the city through community forest grants when we approve them, and there have been some in the past. And probably will be in the future, which is 100% city-owned money. So I think the qathet Regional District could help at the rec center by contributing grants to the Powell River Kings through this grant process to help with not only the Kings, but not leaving all of the onus on the city to address trying to keep these Kings operating, which are clearly a benefit not just to the Kings themselves and the community for having that as part of our culture, but the community at large in the entire region. I think we all benefit from that. And so putting some money toward it is the obvious way to show that support. And so that's why I don't agree that we should offer nothing.
Thank you for that. Director Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. Let me explain my earlier position. And I agree that if it is going to come out from the regional district, it'll come from general grant and aid, because then it's paid for by the municipality and the electoral areas. And then ultimately a general grant and aid is a weighted vote. So the two municipal directors can decide. But the reason why I say that if the city is waiving the fees at the recreation complex, they are automatically determining contributions from the electoral areas. The way the funding formula works for the sub-regional recreation service is at the recreation complex, they have expenses and they have income. You subtract one from the other and you get the operating deficit. The operating deficit is then multiplied by a floor area formula and a population formula, and that's how we ended up with the money that is contributed from the electoral areas. So to boil it down, if the municipality doesn't collect enough revenue, then that means that their operational deficit goes up, and therefore our contribution that we get requested also goes up. So by the city, say, waiving $60,000 in fees, creates a $60,000 deficit at the recreation complex, and therefore, when it comes to the sub-regional recreation service, that money needs to be made up. So yes, that is being contributed by the electoral areas. It's the math. It's straightforward, and if Director Elliott would like to know more, please come to our upcoming service review committee. And also, I'm hoping that the city council can come and talk to us, because I do believe we're still sitting on what, $300,000.
Let's keep on that. Let's keep, Director Gisborne. Let's keep on the motion. The motion is $5,000 for the King, so we're already 2 steps away. So
yes, sorry, I was responding to the comments by Director Elliott.
No, I understand the explanation of how the funding that makes sense, but that's going into service review is careening off the track. But yeah, very. So is that? Sorry,
no, I got more.
You got more? Okay, carry on. Yep.
I just wanted to address the comments previously.
Yeah.
This brings. Oh, Director Brander has his hand up.
Yeah. Okay. So
but it's your turn.
Okay. Oh yes. Okay. Sorry.
You have the floor. Carry on. Then Director Brander's on the list.
Okay. The reason why this kind of gives me some pause is a lot of, as we heard from the delegation, a lot of these hockey organizations, they become privately owned, and we're not able to help private businesses, and they're in the process of actually selling the team. And I'm a little concerned that, if we provide this funding and then, we find out in a couple of months that it's been sold, does that mean that we have now provided funding that is kind of going through the third party to potentially help a private business? And it also makes me think about the Myrtle Point Golf Course. There were some comments made in the past about those that can afford to golf. They don't really need funding from the regional district. And I would make the same argument for hockey. I grew up in this town. I loved hockey, but I couldn't afford it. Couldn't afford to play hockey. Well, I didn't. And I think the same goes for the Kings. They do a wonderful job for the community. They bring in a lot of economic support, but we only have so much funding. We only have so much money in the pool. And my concern is once we say yes one year, you're kind of lining up to say yes in future years. And that's where I have a concern. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I it's been brought to my attention that we haven't actually, we have a motion has been made, but not seconded, I don't believe. Did anyone second the? Oh, it was seconded. Okay, I misunderstood.
But we could discuss.
Well, we can discuss. Okay, thanks. Director Brander, and then Director Southcott.
Thanks, Chair. Just to correct something, to my knowledge, the sub-regional recreation service is funded with a set amount. So if I'm incorrect, please let me know. So whatever revenue the regional or the city brings in at the rec center has no impact on the sub-regional recreation amount that is contributed.
What we're talking about has never been used.
So when it comes to the Powell River Kings and the contribution,
Chair, Director Elliott is providing information that's directed at me, but not to the Assembly.
Yeah, okay, let's just keep, Director Brander has the floor.
He's correct, and I apologize, and I'll stop doing that.
Carry on, Director Brander.
Okay, thank you. I see the financial benefit that the Powell River Kings brings to the community, and not just a financial benefit, but also it's an activity that our community sorely needs. You know, we would need more activities like this. That being said, we have a limited amount of funds in the pot. So, and it's quite a large ask. I don't think it's large compared to what their budget is, but it's large compared to what our budget is. So I'm happy to approve a certain amount, and I know the number of $5,000 has been mentioned, but yeah, I just wanted to say that the sub-regional recreation service isn't really paying for it. Thank you.
Director Southcott.
Thank you, Chair. Having grown up in this community, I've watched the tradition of hockey here and seen my own son benefit hugely. Very directly connected to what is now the Kings. I also have deep doubts that a money-making business is going to figure out how to buy this club, which is why I asked about the questions I did of Mr. Garvey when he was here. So I can conscience $5,000 going to this club, even though they asked for 4 times that much, but I can't conscience any less. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we've had healthy discussion on this. So we've got $5,000, a motion to recommend $5,000 to the hockey club on the table. So I think Director Elliott, and hopefully we can get to a vote soon. Director Elliott, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a small rebuttal, and I don't want to get into a huge debate, only that the formula that should be used hasn't been used. You know, there's always been a set amount. There was a suggested formula that could be used. The agreement's been outdated. We have to update that agreement. The city and regional district staff, I think, are working on a process for that. At least that's what I hear. And the actual formula has actually never been funded by the regional district. There's a considerable deficit that exceeds the 60,000, as I said before. And so that's why I'm trying to say there is no direct relationship for us in that formula, because we're not using it. We're setting set amounts based on what we think our budget feel like doing in our budget, not based on that formula.
Okay, thank you. Let's try to avoid
just the information that I wanted to provide.
I really want us to avoid, we've had 3 comments already about this,
Yeah.
the actual service arrangement with the recreation center. I don't want to entertain any more discussion on that. I see Director Gisborne with his hand up, but I think if it's on that, I think I want to cut off that conversation. The motion is whether or not $5,000. So if you have any last comments on whether 5,000 is the right amount, because I would like to call a question. If it's to talk about the rec service, I think we need to cut that off. Otherwise, we'll never get through this meeting.
Another question, Chair.
Yeah.
Does our procedure bylaw not say that I'm allowed to respond to comments?
Go ahead, you have the floor.
It has to be directly related.
But the motion, so what I'm saying is
But what you've said is I'm not allowed to respond to those comments.
What I'm saying is that that three directors have talked about the recreation service and the funding formula and whether there's an impact or not. They've all made their points. We've all heard them. We don't need to hear rebuttals of them because we've heard different opinions. And what I'm saying is that none of them are relevant to the motion on the table. All of them should have probably been called out of order. And so I'm going to say that we won't have any more discussion on that. We've talked about that enough. The motion is $5,000 for the Kings or not. And that's the motion. And I think any last comment should be directed just on that.
Not allowed to respond. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to call the question on whether or not the recommendation is for $5,000 to the Kings. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. That carries. Okay. So just so we keep track of the tabled motion that we have, that was a reduction of 3,800, so that would leave 6,400 approximately. We'll get an update from Ms. Greenan when we get closer. Corporate Officer?
I just wanted to provide the chair with advice that the finance staff is adjusting in real time.
Okay. Smart. So we'll deal with the other two, and then we'll come back to that. So the cycling one, which is sub-item number 7 in our agenda, which is the recommended motion is $4,122.10 for the Cycling Association. What is the will of the committee? That's sub-item 7. Director Brander.
Move the recommendation.
Okay, let's move the recommendation of $4,000. Is there a seconder for that?
I'll second it.
Okay, so that's on the table. $4,122 for the Cycling Association. Is there discussion on that item? Director Brander made the motion, then Director Elliott, then Director Gisborne.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to say it's considerably less than they were hoping for already. And I think that the comments made by the delegate were correct. You see a lot of people coming to town for our mountain biking, and an investment of $4,100, $4,122.10, I think is fairly reasonable for the amount of return we get from all the hard work that the CA does.
Thank you, Director Elliott, and then Director Gisborne.
I'd like to see on a lower amount than is proposed. I would amend that to be 6,000 if I could get a seconder.
It's actually bigger.
You want to increase it from 4,000? The motion is 4,000.
Sorry, he said the one in the package and I was looking at the pink row. My apologies.
Yeah, so it's 4,122.
Okay, I'm okay then. Thank you so much for clarifying. I was unfortunately looking at option 2 instead of 1 when I was thinking what we were doing.
Yeah, that's quite fine. I used a different calculation for that. Okay, Director Gisborne, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to point out that they are receiving their funding. They're receiving funding from ORUG already, and we do provide funding to ORUG. I'm in favor of this motion, which might sound a little odd because it sounds like we're kind of, paying twice. But if you remember some of the comments I made at previous discussions around funding ORUG, in my opinion, we have been heavily underfunding ORUG for many years. And as a result, I am not surprised that some of their subsidiary groups are now going to start asking for funds from us individually. So we might have a bunch more applications in future years. The way to deal with that is to properly fund ORUG. So that way they can distribute it amongst their member-owned organizations. And then we can tell the member organizations that, hey, you get your funding through ORUG. So I'm fine with this, but mainly because we've been underfunding ORUG for many years. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So is there any other discussion on this item, which is $4,122.10? Okay, so I'm going to call the question on this item. All those in favor? None opposed. That carried unanimously. So before we move, so the next item is sub-item 10 in our agenda, which is the Powell River Child, Youth and Family Services Society on behalf of Foundry. The recommended amount is $10,992. Now, before we entertain a motion, maybe I'll ask from the financial officer, how much is the current amount remaining in our general grants and aid budget? I would calculate close to 17,000, but just so we know what we're dealing with.
Thank you, Chair. $17,377.09.
Okay, so 17,370 something. So that's the amount we got. So what is the will of the committee regarding the foundry? Director Southcott.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move 10,992.27 be granted to. What is that? Is that the amount in the first list?
So that's the amount in the recommendation. That's in option one.
Yeah. Be granted to Foundry. However, you.
Seconded. Okay, seconded by Director McCormick. Okay, so discussion on this item. Director Gisborne.
Well, thank you, Chair. As I'm sure we all remember from Monday, there was a fairly large ask from Foundry for the regional hospital district. I know that's still working its way through. But one of the concerns I have is if Foundry is unable to get enough capital to move forward with the project, how does this grant funding work? Like, do we give them the 10,000, but if they're unable to actually move forward, then I guess the funding doesn't go to them or it comes back? And, you know, 10,000 is it's not a small amount here when we're talking about grants and aid, but with the amount of money that they actually need to complete their project, it doesn't go very far. And I was hoping that we could have gotten at least something a bit bigger over at the hospital district, but we'll wait until, I don't know. So that's my curiosity.
Okay, so the question, I guess, to Ms. Greenan is what happens to this grant if the Foundry does not move forward in the context of the project?
Okay, thank you, Chair. So, sorry, could you repeat the question? We were looking at the.
So if we granted them 10,992 and the Foundry does not move forward because of other financial issues, what would happen to this grant and aid?
Thank you, Chair. So we would have to, make it clear that that the funding is conditional on them moving forward. So then they would have to return the funds. We pay them to them and return them to us, or make it conditional that we don't pay it.
Okay.
We have to prepare to pay that out, so we can't count that it's not money that's not coming.
Okay, yeah, Director Gisborne, carry on.
Yeah, and as a follow-up, because of the timeline that they're working with, would it be possible to consider a higher amount, but have that allocated in the 2026 financial plan, seeing as how this, budget pool is fairly limited? But if we were to put something, say, in the 2026 financial plan of a higher amount, then we could allocate that when we go to adopt our 2026 financial plan. Is that a possibility where we could actually give more?
Well, so I guess there's two. I'll ask that to Ms. Greenan, but there's actually two pieces to that. Could we be granting some of this request as part of the 2026 budget? And of course, the second piece is, could it be higher? And I think that second piece is up to us. But the main question is, could the decision or the recommendation here include some or all of this as 2026 budget?
Yes, we have done that in the past. Just say this much money in from 2026 grants and aid, and then we and then it would ratified when we actually do the 2026 budget.
Okay, carry on.
And that's where my kind of thought was when I was reading through this package. I would actually be in favor of, because they're asking for 25,000. I would actually be comfortable with 25,000, but as there's limited pool funding, say, hey, let's do 25,000 in the 2026 financial plan, and then they get that whole amount that they're asking. I know it's a little bit lateral to what they're talking about, but the way to actually meet their full request. That's the thoughts on the assembly.
So there's been a proposal here, but the motion on the table is 10,992 out of the current budget. But as we've heard, some or all, we could always allocate some money for next year if we want to commit to something like that. But Director Lennox.
Thanks, Chair. So just to be clear about this, if we voted this motion down so that we can use the funds to support some of the other things where we're obviously gonna have some shortcomings, and we could have a subsequent motion. Would it require a subsequent motion on its own, I would think, to create a placeholder, I guess, for 2026? I don't, not really my favorite thing to do is to presuppose spending money when we're gonna have other organizations come to us guaranteed. But in this case, my thought process just along the same lines that this seems like a drop in the bucket to what may be needed to push that project. And so I'd hate to see us do a little bit of a performative step here and allocate the money where we could actually give it to somebody who could use it now. So
thank you. Director Elliott.
Well, this is kind of a delicate balancing act for sure. We are considering things over at the hospital district about funding that's likely to take beyond the amount of time that we have in this year. And the folks at the Foundry have been working super hard at gaining funding through grants in other areas as well. And they have received approvals for grants that may run up against them having to prove, you know, to try and carry those forward as well. And some demonstrable support from the city or the local governments could help them a long ways in giving assurances to the granting organizations that they're locally supported. And so to the only way I would be in favor of a commitment next year is if it was in writing and they could count on it and use it as guaranteed support to all of their other funding agencies that they are trying to show support for. I wouldn't be okay with that idea if it gave them nothing tangible to count on at this point in time.
Thank you. And I'll add myself on after Director. Oh, so I think Ms. Greenan had her hand up. I'll ask her for some information, and then Director Southcott, and then myself. Ms. Greenan?
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair, one thing we just wanted to point out too is that in the meantime, you know, before we actually acted on, if we did commit to funds to the Foundry in 2026, in the meantime, if they become a designated healthcare facility, we would not be able to pay those funds out because they would be then becoming eligible for the funds. So.
Right. Hey, Director Southcott.
Thank you, Chair. So bring us back to this moment in time. I'm definitely a believer in a bird in the hand, as it is said. And I also reflect on how many times I have heard organizations like the Foundry who are truly considering a very substantial initiative when it comes to cost, say that the kind of support that local government provides way outweighs the actual numbers. But when other funders see that we have our heart in it, represented by numbers that we can commit, it counts for a lot. And that's why I support this amount now, and whatever we might do later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Southcott. Director McCormick.
Thank you. Just to also say that I support giving this amount now. I don't want to cloud it with anything in 2026. We don't know if it's going to go ahead or not go ahead. It's still up in the air. So I think in the here and now, yes, I support this recommendation. And I'd like to, I guess, call the question or ask that the question be called.
Okay, let's keep it soft. I will try to wrap up debate here, and I think we've all had a good discussion on it. The motion on the table is 10,992. I see Director Gisborne, if you have something very germane to the motion, but the motion that's being put for question in a moment, and is that, unless yeah, go ahead, Director Gisborne.
I think I do.
You think you do?
Yeah, my understanding is, you know, similar to, what is it, the hospice, we make a funding commitment And then when they actually get they start moving forward with construction, then the money becomes unlocked. But if we make that commitment, that's something they can take to the bank. So even if we say, hey, we'll give you $25,000 in 2026, that would come with, I believe, some kind of letter or some kind of notice that says, hey, we are committed to giving $25,000 in 2026. But something else also came to mind, and I believe it was pointed out that if they get the healthcare facility designation and they become eligible for regional hospital district funding, does that mean that if this funding is, say, made available of $5,000 or sorry, yeah, 10,000, sorry, my apologies. Does that mean that we would not actually be able to give them the $10,000? Because whether it's 25 or 10 or 5, did I hear that right? If they become a healthcare facility, we actually can't give them funding?
Ms. Greenan?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, yes, policy does exclude healthcare facilities. That we don't find healthcare facilities.
Okay, thank you. That actually changes my mind substantially, because yes, we can give them $10,000 now, but I thought they would like to get the healthcare facility designation and get a much higher amount at the regional hospital district. So if we pass this motion and say, yeah, there's $10,000, but then over at the hospital district, we continue to push to have them a healthcare facility, then what that does is it means that, hey, this $10,000 that we're earmarking, they can't actually use. And instead, once they get that designation, they would have to give that, say, $10,000 back and then rely on what's being available to the regional hospital district. You see the problem? It's like you can get peanuts from the regional district, or you can get the whole elephant from the regional hospital district. And we're talking about peanuts right now. And I'd prefer to go the elephant method, but that's just me. Sorry, Chair. I think that's okay.
Yeah, that's germane. So I think we've had a healthy debate, and I don't see any other hands up. So right now we have the motion on the table is as in the agenda package. So 10,992. So I'm going to call the question on that motion. So all those in favor of that amount, and all those opposed? Carried. 2 opposed, Director Lennox and Director Gisborne. Okay, so now we're taking the item off the table, which is for the writing club, and we'll ask Ms. Greenan for the amount we have available.
Thank you, Chair. For the Chair, we have $6,385.63. What I have too.
Okay, so Director Elliott and then Director Gisborne.
If it pleases the committee, I would like to make the motion about the Colorado Trail Riders Club to be the remainder, the number that Ms. Greenan just said.
Okay, is there a seconder? Seconded by Director Southcott. Okay, discussion on that item. Director Gisborne.
So we're moving a amendment to the main motion, is that correct?
Right. Okay. So is that you're quite correct. So this is an amendment. So to be clear, what you just did. So it's on the table already, right? Our corporate officer, help me out here. So we have to.
Yeah, sorry, I totally missed the number. But is it less than what we have? What the motion has available? Yeah. So we can't actually consider.
It's more than in the motion.
Oh, yeah. How much do we have available?
We have $6,385.63, but the motion that we have in the package.
Oh, sorry, that's okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so the motion on the table was.
We have a motion of 10,000 on the table, so it actually is not in order. We can't consider it because we don't have the ability to.
I don't know if we have that motion. I think the
right.
package motion was moved, and he was going to.
What is it? No. Is it not simpler to just call this an amendment, corporate officer? Would that be in order to just suggest to Director Elliott that she's amending it to that amount?
We're amending it to bring it into order.
Thank you. I'm just sorry, Chair. So my understanding is we currently have a motion. My writing's very messy here. It's either 10,000 or 11,000.
Yeah, it's a 10,100. 10,100. Yeah, how about?
And I've been waiting. I have a request for the official one, but okay, thank you. That you can't. If the amendment failed, you couldn't consider the first motion, so that motion's not in order.
Okay, so is it,
so-
would Director Gisborne be okay to withdraw, would the mover and seconder be okay to withdraw that motion? So a proper one? No, they can't. Okay, corporate officer.
Thank you. You can just
Is it-
rule it now.
Okay, it's out of,
and
okay.
request a new motion.
It's
I like
okay.
when I make
That
a
motion
and then
is
I do things, now my motion's out of order.
fine. That motion's out of order, and Director Elliott has made one, so we can just consider that one in order as a proper motion, seconded by Director Southcott. So we're all okay. So
And
6,000.
The number is now
385.
Yes.
And change. So we're good with that. Okay, discussion on that item. Seeing none, I will then call the question. All those in favor? None opposed, that carries. Now, we do have a number of other items here, but seeing as we have a board meeting in 6 minutes, what is the wish? Would the committee prefer to start the board meeting late, or would the committee prefer to postpone this meeting and carry on after the board meeting or at another time? So maybe a couple comments around Director McCormick.
I prefer to get this done now. Let's carry on, let's finish it. I think we've had the bulk of the discussion that we're gonna have, and hopefully it won't be too long.
Okay, corporate officer and then Director
Tell
Elliott.
us how you really feel.
Thank you. Terry. Perhaps now might be the time to ask the assembly if there's any that they would like to consider in a block.
Okay, are there any that
No?
Let's see. Well, I think it's confusing enough. Maybe we'll just plow through them. I think it'll be quicker to. So Director Elliott, go ahead. What do you?
I'm sorry, I thought we were still talking about what we prefer as far as how we do the meeting.
Yeah.
I think the time allotment, no matter what we're doing, is about the same. Public may be expecting us to be in a very different meeting very shortly. I was speaking in favor of sticking with our current schedule for our public meeting for the regional board, and then just continuing where we left off after that. I don't see how it saves us time to disrupt the public and their expectations around our board meeting, because we're all here anyway. But that's my thoughts on that. I disagree with what was said before.
Okay, maybe let's just see as a show of hands who would prefer to carry on right now and finish this. Take about, I don't know how long, 20 minutes or something. Put up your hands. So I would prefer, and who would prefer to postpone this till after? It looks like a majority wants to carry on. So why don't we just carry on? We'll try to be efficient, and I'll try to go through and we'll try to pick up the bits from this intake. So the first one is the Lang Bay item number 14069, Director Brander. Second first. Oh, sorry.
I'd like to, sorry?
Go ahead.
I'd like to move that we fund the Lang Bay request to the tune of $66,500 with 75% coming from electoral area C and 25% coming from electoral area B.
Second.
Okay, so is there discussion on that? Seeing that. Oh, Director Gisborne.
Yeah, I might have made a mistake earlier. I had a brief chat with Director Brander and I'd said 25%, but I had actually written down 25% of Area C's contribution, which actually works out to 1/5 and 4/5. It's kind of splitting hair, but I think the motion's fine enough for us to move forward as is.
Okay, is that okay?
And we can adjust it at the board.
Okay, fine, and I'll trust Linda Green to make sure the money's there in Area B. So, if further discussion, oh, you have your hand up, Ms. Greenan.
Thank you, Chair, through the chair. Sorry, there's only $570.32 available in Area B. So you have to limit the amount from Area B to that.
Right.
Unless there's some other one.
Have we already committed to the Film Society and everything else?
Thank you. We haven't adopted the other motions in the package.
Okay, so we'll have to adjust that one down a bit, the other ones, if we do this. So we're okay with this? It's 25 and 75. That's the motion. So all those in favor? None opposed. That carried. Okay, so we'll figure out Area B. So this number 2 is the Liskedi Community Association Food Bank. I'll move the motion in the package, $1,000. Is there a seconder? Director McCormick. Discussion. Food bank's great. Other than that, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Carried. We did number 3. We're on number 4, which is the Nature Trust. Director Lennox?
I move the recommendation.
Okay, seconded by Director Gisborne. Is there? Go ahead, Director Lennox.
Yeah, just quickly, obviously from our discussions earlier, this is an important action that we can take, and Area A is in full support of getting her done, and I'll try to help.
Okay, great. So no further discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor? None opposed. That carried. Okay, so we're on the Film Society one, which has multiple parts, which we may have to adjust Area B. What's the will of the committee? Director Lennox?
Move the recommendation is and all the ands
seconded.
that go with it.
Okay, seconded by Director Brander. I think that's still enough money in Area B. Is that correct, Ms. Greenan?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there is.
Okay, Director Gisborne, go ahead.
Yeah, there was something that the delegation said that I found interesting. The delegation said that they received their funding from the City of Powell River through the qathet Arts Council. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we give a lot of money to the qathet Arts Council in the first intake? I think, what was it, like 15,000?
Ms. Greenan? Yeah, I see Director Elliott, but Ms. Greenan might be able to. Did we give funding to qathet art?
Can we give
funding to? Did we last spring at the first intake? Did we already give a grant to? Or not already, did we give a grant to qathet art? That's the question.
I think we did.
Chair, I think it's irrelevant, and I'll tell you why.
Okay, while staff are looking, Director Elliott, go ahead.
There is a designated amount of money from the city specifically for a grant program, and that is what they're talking about. It isn't from other sources of revenue. So any grant the qathet Regional District gave to the Arts Council would not be part of that grant program. So the city has a grant program for the arts. The Arts Council manages it for them, and that's the funding that we give specifically for that. We also give other funding for all the rest of their organization. And so the answer to Director Gisborne's question is not relevant to that particular piece.
Okay, thank you.
We don't, like, you know how we're all sitting around here deciding grants? We don't do that at the city. We give the entire amount over to the Arts Council to decide for us.
Okay, so we've had okay, so that's the motions on the table of what we're talking about. Are we good? Okay, so then the motion has been made as in the package. I will then call the question. All those in favor? None opposed. Carried. Okay, so now the next one is for Lasqueti Island Internet Access Society, $1,000. That's sub-item number 6. I'll move the recommendation in the package. Seconded by Director McCormick. Is there any discussion? I'll only mention Leas does a lot of great jobs, and this money is to provide support for their hotspots, their public hotspots, so they provide that service. Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. We dealt with number 7, so now we're on to number 8, which is ASIC. Director Lennox?
Yeah, Chair, I'd like to alter this motion with a different dollar amount to 1,100.
To 1,100. Okay, the motion's been made for 1,100 for ASIC. Does anyone like to second that?
Yeah.
Director McCormick. Okay, discussion. Director Lennox, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I struggle with applications where I see just operating expenses, and this was one of those. I did a little research when I was looking at the application. Last year, I supported their full, we supported their full application of 2,500. I think that we've had some good discussions over the last little while about encouraging organizations to move to self-sufficiency, especially around their operating expenses. So that's what I'm encouraging ASIC to do. Although I do want to support them a little more than the recommendation. They're doing a lot of good work over there. They help us a lot with communications. And in the on page 4 of 260 on our strat plan, it's the goal of community connections. We enable the extraordinary volunteer networks in our region, and that's exactly what they're doing. So that's why I support this. And I do encourage them to consider projects that are relevant to what their mandate and what they're working on for Savary, so that I can consider supporting them more. And, many folks over there and understand that the regional grants are helped by Area A and Savary Island's high assessed values. And this time we're trying to help them out a bit too. So I support this. Thanks.
Very good. Is there any other discussion on this item? So 1100, it's not as in the package, it's 1100 to Association of Savary Island Committee. Seeing no other hands up, I will call the question. All those in favor? None opposed, that carried. Okay, we already dealt with number 9 and 10. So we're on to number 11, which is go ahead, Director McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. I would move for number 11 that we respectfully deny the application. And if there is a seconder, I will explain why.
Okay, seconded by Director Southcott. Go ahead, Director McCormick.
Thank you. I was concerned about their accounting practices when their application came forward in the spring. I'm still just as concerned when I read the documentation that they provided. There's no documentation for 2024. It only includes 23 and 22. I was concerned that money granted from TxADA was used in areas for which there was no funding provided. In other words, it was used elsewhere, and there was no accounting of that. So I was a bit concerned to see the delegate here earlier today providing the brochure information that she did, but she didn't stay because there are a number of questions that I could have asked her that might have clarified my position or corrected my position. But based on the material that I've read in here, I can't support the recommendation. So that is why I moved the motion to respectfully deny.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on this? Okay, so the motion on the table is to respectfully deny the grant request from Wild Ocean Whale Society. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? None opposed? That carried. Okay, now we're on to sub-item 12, the brain injury. And we maybe before we move this, maybe an update from Ms. Green and how much is actually left in Area B so we know what we're up against here.
Chair?
Yes?
I just wanted to make the comment that I was unable to actually access the Wild Ocean Whales information to read it online at all. I don't know if that needs fixing for mine and the public's sake or what have you, but that's just my comment on that last one.
Okay, thank you. We should we'll make sure everyone has access to that information. So maybe so Ms. Greenan?
Thank you, Chair. There is $597.77.
$597.77. So that will limit whether that's whether the board wants to support this, whether they want to support it on the prorated amount, or whether they want to support it with you want to support it with a reduced amount for Area B, given that it's at its limit. So what is the will of the committee? I don't see any. Director McCormick?
I don't know how hard it is to calculate, but if it was prorated so that Area B was contributing the 597, what would the numbers then proportionally be for the other areas?
Okay, Ms. Greenan, is that possible to do that? It would be approximately a little bit less than half the total. But,
it would be a bit less than half.
Thank you. Yes, the total would be $590 that could be given to them, and then
right, the total request is 10,000. That's what those add up to. But that would be, Ms. Greenan will come up with the exact numbers.
You have to access it via the PDF, not through the HTML version.
I didn't know that either.
I just discovered it. We're having issues getting it up.
So is there any discussion on this while we're waiting? We don't have a motion on the table yet, but Director Gisborne and then Director Brander, I see.
Sorry. Something was living in my throat. My apologies. I'm reading their application, And of course, it gave me some deja vu because we had an application in the spring intake from the Powell Brain Injury Society. Per the application, the Powell Brain Injury Society has also requested $5,200 of funding from the city of Powell River. They were unsuccessful in their request. The spring grant intake came before our assembly, and I believe it was for general grant and aid, and it passed the finance committee, but I do not believe it passed the board level. So what we're actually looking at here is providing funding to the Powell Brain Injury Society from the electoral areas, not from the whole region, and the city has already denied funding to them. So I'm just wondering why should it come from the electoral areas if the city's not going to participate? Is this not a regional benefit?
Right, so there's a rhetorical question. I see, Director Brander and then Director Elliott. We'll try to. So this is general discussion. We don't have a motion. Hopefully, we head towards a motion, but we need to get our numbers once the staff have the numbers. So, Director Brander.
The first time this came before us, I was uncomfortable with it then, and I'm still uncomfortable with it because it's asking for a considerable amount of money and it's for operational purposes. So that would be, one could presume that we would be seeing this request year in and year out. And I see this as largely a health-related issue. And I mean, I'm not making a motion right now, but I kind of feel that we should be staying out of it.
Thank you for that. And Director, well, Director Elliott, and then maybe make the motion. Director Elliott had her hand up.
So the Brain Injury Society made I think an application through the Powell River Community Forest, and they were not approved for their full amount. I don't know if they were denied altogether, but some, like the wording for the Lang Bay, where she said that we rejected the amount, that wasn't true. We pared it back. And also the Brain Injury Society every single year receives a permissive tax exemption from the city of Powell River, which also includes the city of Powell River contributing the QRD's portion of that permissive tax exemption. And so we, the city taxpayers, pay for the QRD portion of that tax. So the QRD still receives the money off of that tax, but there is no tax bill to receive it off of. So the city has to contribute that every year for the Brain Injury Society. Just so you know.
Okay, thank you.
And so I would, they may not have filled it out in their application information, but the city does support them through a permissive tax exemption.
So I'm looking to our staff. Do we have updated information there, or is it? Apologies for the complicated on-the-fly calculations, but that's the nature of the game.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you, Chair. Through the chair. Yeah. So the amount available then from A, B, C, and D, that the maximum that can be contributed, would be $3,617.50. So that would be $1,682.57 for area A. $597.78 for areas B, $823.28 from area C, and $513.87 from area D.
Okay, so that's what we have available. So Director Gisborne, you have your hand up there.
Yeah, I was going to move that we respectfully deny their application. If I get a seconder, I'll speak to it.
Is there a seconder for that? Director Lennox?
Yeah. I don't want to be a cheap bugger. As you can tell, I've been opposed to some grant requests and in favor of others. And I guess part of it is the way my brain is looking at these might be a little different than our policy. I'm not a fan of providing grants for operations. I'm not a fan of providing grants for things that are, in my opinion, clearly provincial responsibility. I spent many years looking after my father, who had an acquired brain injury. I know the impact it has on the individuals and the families and the supports that they need. And property taxation is not the appropriate way to fund those services. They're supposed to be funded by the provincial government through income tax and through their other cost recoveries. Property tax is really the only way that we get these funds. And I know we don't like being downloaded upon, but this kind of strays into the territory of upgrabbing, where we're actually kind of, they have a challenge and they're asking for money for operations. And, you know, we want to support these organizations. We want to support, like, I want to be generous, but I always have to remind myself that I'm being generous with someone else's money. And I think ultimately we're going to have another good conversation around how we do our grants. I was looking at, I think, Sunshine Coast, and like, they don't provide grant funding for operations and salaries or like insurance. It's really kind of focused towards the asset. Like, do you need to actually buy something to install? So like the heat pump, I was like, that speaks to me, that they're actually getting something tangible. That's where our grant goes. And at the end of the day, there's a community asset that is physical and tangible, and you can reach out and touch. Various organizations, they're just trying to run their programs, and whether that's through staff or having to hire folks in, I want to support it, but we got to stay within our lane here, which is property taxes. And this really is a healthcare issue. And of course, healthcare makes you think about hospital district, but hospital district can only do capital funding. I applaud the work they do. It speaks to me very much on a personal level, because like I said, I spent a lot of time with acquired brain injury. And to me, it doesn't speak to what the purpose of our grant and aid really should come down to, because there's a lot of need in our community. And if anything, we should be going to UBCM and AVICC and pushing the provincial government to be fully funding the services that are needed in our community to fund those operations. Unfortunately, it seems to keep falling back to us, and we want to support people. So that's why I want to support them. But the motion that I've put forward is that we respectfully deny, and I lean heavily on that word, respectfully. It's not that we don't support what they're doing. It's the fund operations for something that really should be healthcare funded. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the motion to respectfully deny? Go ahead, Director Lennox, and then Director Elliott.
Thanks, Chair, and I respect the other directors' comments. I struggle with this one as well. I'm actually in support of this motion. And as you can see, Area A carries the lines, the heavy weight here with some of these, with these grants based on our assessed value, right? Those are some big numbers. And this is, in my mind, I agree with the comments made around, healthcare provision. I empathize with the people that need these services, but again, I said it earlier, I'm trying to move away from operating expenses, and this is even the original request of 10,000, for an organization that has a $238,000 staff and wages and benefits package. Like I said, I just think it'd be better used for if there was a project to support. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Elliott.
Thank you. I just wanted to point it out that some other grants that we give do go toward operational things too. I don't know if it's this program, but things we contribute for other things within our community sometimes help with our operations. I think the Film Society has their film festival every year, but it's an ongoing thing, and we continue to contribute to it because we think the film festival is good. There's various arts grants we give out for through the city and other ways for arts projects that happen on an annual basis. And I'm not sure you realize that the Brain Injury Society doesn't just do the things that they get funded through the province to do. They also create a space for arts and crafting, gardening, and many things that folks who have brain injuries may not be able to access through the regular channels, because the atypical setup for those kinds of activities are not friendly to their needs. And so they're also like a gathering space like you would have at the library, but it's specific for brain injury folks, and they have a number of activities that they can handle there that are community orientated and could be accessed elsewhere, but because of their brain injuries, it's preferable to do it within the environment that is set up for them. And so operating that space is very much a community asset. And so I wanted to provide that perspective here. And I don't think that providing grants, I mean, they could come up with their annual crafting event and call it that instead and ask for a grant, and maybe some help around. If we're going to start saying that we don't want to do it because it's operational in nature, but if they had a project and they could form a project out of their crafting or their gardening or their whatever and ask for that instead, that's just a matter of staff and everybody helping them figure out how to apply for a grant from the QRD that would suit us better. And it's about changing the way they present themselves. And when you're dealing with organizations that are mainly run with folks who have brain injury, these kinds of things are harder. And I don't know that making that distinction is very helpful when you take into consideration what it is they do there. It's a very community-oriented activity for folks with brain injuries. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on this item? So we have on the table is on the motion is to respectfully deny the grant. I don't see any other hands up, so I'm going to call the question on denying the grant respectfully. All those in favor? Opposed? It carries. So that we're on to item number 13, and I'm going to move an alternate motion, which is the motion in the package, but the amount of 10,500. And if I get a seconder, and this is for the Skeety Last Resort Society for the battery replacement project. Thank you, Director Brander. If I speak briefly with it, if you remember last year, we got a kind of late request from them for their battery project, which was the replacement project was $70,000, went to the hospital district because of the complexity of the health center, and there's people living there. There's some elder cabins and so on. We were only the hospital district was only able to provide a grant of $9,457.15 for that, because that represented the proportion of the project that was attributed to the health center. At the time, that I said that was, or we agreed that was a small, relatively small. Hospital district sent it to the regional district. We increased the Area E grant and aid amount budget last year by that exact amount. So the intent was a matching grant. So that's what we were intending. That's where we were trying to go with this. And that's what I actually wrote to the community to explain to the community what was going on here with their taxes. I explained to them what exactly went here, and we had this amount. Now, I understand the recommendation, which is following the policy, and that's the remaining funds in Area E if we were to use it all. But we don't have to use them all. I think the appropriate thing would be to stick to what the intent was. But I thought about giving a top up of suggesting a top up. So rounding it up, not rounding up, adding about $1,000 on, that'll help them towards their goal. That will mean they'll have a total of about $20,000 combined from Area E through our grant and aid and from the hospital district towards their project. So hopefully will still be very useful for them. And I have one question actually for Ms. Greenan, if I might, and I think I know the answer, but if I understand this kind of got, because of the change in the budget last year, the staff put this on the agenda. That did the Last Resort actually apply for a grant and aid, or was this just because the intention behind the matching amount put into the grant and aid?
Thank you, Chair. They actually applied for funding from the regional hospital district directly, and then what we did was we looked at what the Last Resort Society's operations are, and then realized that only a portion of the batteries were used for the healthcare facility. So then the board agreed to move the application from the regional hospital district to the regional district to ask for a request. So they didn't apply directly for a grant and aid from the regional district. It went straight to the hospital district.
Okay, thank you. And I want to thank staff for helping with this. This has been a bit of a thing to stick handle through the different places, and I really appreciate the work staff have put into this. Okay, that's all I have to say on that. I don't see any other hands up, so I will call the question. All those in favor? None opposed. That carries unanimously, and we are done grants and aid as far as, unless I missed something between all the jumps and hoops and loops. So, Director Elliott?
I might bring this up when it comes to the board. I just wanted to bring it out that the Brain Injury Society speaks directly to the idea that this was an operational and potentially ongoing thing, because it was said in the past one, and they bring that to task within their report, and they say, well, the funds were intended to support a frontline staff delivery of programming. They were tied to a defined initiative empowering recovery with clear outcomes, milestones, and evaluation measures. The grant was not sought to underwrite the general operating costs of the society, but to ensure the successful delivery of a specific program and service with advanced community health, culture, vibrancy, and social sustainability in keeping with the QRD's stated objectives under policy 3.11. And so I just wanted to make everyone aware that they have heard you in the first time that they brought this application forward. They specifically spoke to that within their application, saying that is not what this is. And it's the only application they've put to the QRD in the 35 years that they've been operating. And so the rationale that it is operational funding and trying to cover their operational cost is refuted in their own application.
Thank you for that. And this is a reminder that we're making recommendations. So all of these will come back on the board. And in particular, any ones that are not unanimous.
I just wanted to put that out there so we could think about it now in the board meeting.
Very good. Thank you. And so now we're hopefully done item 8.4. We have one more item, 8.5, which is the Watershed Security Fund Grant Application. Director Lennox.
I move the recommendation.
Second.
Is there any discussion on that? Director Lennox, go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly, I know we're running short on time, want to move to our next meeting. If you read this brief report, it really just spells it out. This was a grant. What happens is it proves that you should be paying attention to your correspondence. Sometimes I have a tendency to move through those, and what I discovered on one of our staff communications, there was the Watershed Security Fund that has an opening. And I sent it to staff, and to their credit, thank you for whoever's involved, got it onto our agenda because there's some tight timelines. So there's a recommendation there to obviously support the application. Interestingly, if you look them up on their website, I encourage you to do that. It's definitely a targeted initiative involving First Nations, which is really important, and the protection of our watersheds. I'm not even going to keep going because literally that's what's happening in Lund. We're trying to protect our watershed, work with First Nations, and get the project done. And so we feel we should try for every opportunity we have on grant program. So thank you, staff. And we've got some timelines that they're prepared to take action on. Hope you support it.
Thank you for that. And I'll just add my words. I think this is great, and I appreciate the kind of work finding opportunities. This is, a good opportunity, and hopefully we can be successful here. Okay, is there any other discussion on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? None opposed. That carries unanimously. No new business. We're on to question period. Is anyone in the room, or Mr. Galinsky, are you still with us?
Yes, still with you. Not even exhausted yet. We can get on with the next meeting, Chair. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, you got enough, hopefully you have in you still another time for the upcoming meeting. Okay, that is it. We have no in-camera meeting. We are adjourned.
Everybody